Ooh, welcome to the green room, folks. It's that time again. Maybe.
Wow, this generator for all your pictures loves that one where you and RJ are dogs
Oh,
and PJ's walking you.
yeah, the randomness of the slideshow is not very random. Like, Dong Hunters comes up a lot. There are so many in there that are like probably classics that never get played because it favors a very peculiar algorithm that keeps playing the same track over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't know, if I did it like scrolling through, that wouldn't change anything. So we'd always just see like the first 6.
I'm trying to see. It likes to hang out on anything between like A and D, the beginning of the names, like beginning of the titles. So
Yeah,
I wonder if
it's
like
a flawed algorithm.
because cops, pervs, or whatever we've seen 3 times already. Dragon butt, like it only
It stays toward the beginning of the list.
Yeah.
I'm very upset
chugging.
because I've got so many great images that I worked so hard on.
I did it. I got my words done, and I'm here just in time to hear David say Dong Hunters comes up a lot.
It's always coming up.
This is the 3rd time you've seen cops and pervs. Oh my god. Or the 4th.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I wish there was a better way. There probably is. I just haven't done it yet.
Captain Candy. Maybe it only sees the first.
No, it sees them all. It read the whole directory. Maybe I'll move it to a separate program because it is kind of lame that like the same 6 get played over and over again. And
The Bard.
well, I guess by the time you're seeing it, it's the Bard. I'm way ahead in the future.
Oh, yeah.
All right, have people trickled in necessarily?
There were like 3.
We'll give it a couple more minutes. Well, I guess I'll talk about the what we're going over to during the actual show, because then it'll needs to be canonical.
Yeah.
Here in the green room, nothing matters.
Nothing. Oh my god. 5.
You're gonna see it a lot.
Well, now I'm just noticing it so much more. And Doc's Family Farms this is the 4th time seeing that one too.
Yeah, maybe I'll
That's
just
funny.
start deleting the ones that come up too much. Like, sorry, you gotta be retired.
Yeah. You're going inactive for a couple streams.
Or, maybe it's just artificially sentient. It loves the classics.
Mm-hmm. Chorped. Just like chorped.
So
Hey,
green in
RJ.
here, says RJ. Well, you're in the green room. Hello, look around. Did you read the sign above the door? Welcome.
There's no craft services. Sorry.
No, you're not talent. You're just in the green room. Oh, there's the, you guys will see in a sec, the Don't Let RJ Vapo Rub. I'm glad you were here to see that, RJ. One of my finest pieces of art. So here's the thing. Let me ask you, while we're in the green room, I'll do an informal ask. I've been, so, like, if you're alive and on social media, you probably experienced some of the backlash or anger, or vitriol, stop me where you've experienced it, of like artists like raging against AI art.
And then also using it?
No, just like not like saying that it's going to put them out of this or that, or it isn't real, or yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it in principle, but I've got a lot of arguments for it, and I was wondering if I should like dedicate one Friday to be like, yeah, well, here are my counterpoints. But then I was like, who cares? Like, as much as I use AI generated art, I feel like I have a vested interest. So I might be
Bias.
I'm definitely biased, but I might also be clouded with the fact that I find a legitimate use for it, that if I were to go to an artist to generate just the utter nonsense you see scrolling before you, it would cost me thousands of dollars and take weeks.
I was going to say, yeah, and it would take so much time because it's not, I think it's fun for somebody who's not artistic like me when it comes to art, like this kind of stuff. Like I could never do this.
Too, when not to like, well, here's the thing, but here is the thing, because AI art, I don't see that getting sold anywhere or used anywhere. Like, it's not to the point where anybody's like, oh yeah, definitely, let's nail it on that. Like, of course, in the advertisements, they're going to be like, hey, I typed in baby superheroes and everything's perfect. Like, they had no extra limbs and they had the right amount of eyes. But in reality, that doesn't happen. It's always like this bizarre, you're seeing it. Some of these things look normal, but that's after considerable tinkering by me. And like, as you're seeing these things, well, who cares? We're not doing the show about art. I'm just saying we could do it in the future if anybody cared. But of course, I could go down that pathway any day of the week. Or any pathway, really.
Well, and it's not to say that we don't support local art or like artists in
general. Yeah,
but
that's again, that would be a show that this isn't, and it's time to get started.
You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Dave. It's out of the green room time. It's the actual show. It's Flamingo Friday. Let me know about that AI art show if you were listening. If you got here just now, welcome. If it's the future and you have access to all of this, let me know in the comments below. Or send $5 to... No, I'm just kidding. Krista's over there on the producer spot.
I'm here. I just now saw the Vapor Rub one. What?
Yeah, the Vapor Rub comes from the Discord. It's a nice reference because RJ wanted a Vapor Rub mead.
Mm-hmm.
And still kicking it around. Don't get me wrong, RJ. It's not a completely stupid idea. It's just mostly
98%.
Stupid idea. So here's what we're going to do tonight or whenever you're watching this. So usually when we're doing true crime material, it's interrogation footage. And sometimes we'll even play our interrogation bingo. But there's no readily or easily available footage to me of Joel Guy Jr. In the interrogation room. And even if there was, he's so weird, I feel like it would just be frustrating.
Mm.
So what we're going to be going over is the closing arguments of the prosecution. Cures all ailments. But yeah, so what we're going to do is because I was going to give you guys a brief rundown, and I probably still will, but the closing arguments are going to be a summation of the entire case and all the evidence. And we'll get some nice glamour shots of Joel being a weirdo and all that other good stuff. But there's no, and I wish there was, because maybe we could do the stuff where he's on the stand, but I feel like it won't give you the same breadth of the case as this is going to, because I feel like a lot of times too, when we do the interrogation stuff, I'm just sort of taking for granted that you're either not interested in all the fine details or already know them. Whereas now this will sort of collapse that waveform and we can all go through this together, because I already know all the details. So here, look at him. There he is. There's Joel Guy Jr. Right off the bat, the similarities of him to Grant Amato are striking. He is a spoiled turd who was coddled by the mom and was eventually having to be pulled from the teat of the family because they were tired of supporting him his entire life. So the murder took place in Tennessee. I want to say it's Knoxville, but I might be wrong. I know he went to college in Baton Rouge. You'll get the timeline of where and why those two cities interplay throughout this footage. So I don't want to belabor the point too much, but just know that He was coddled his entire life by his parents. They were like, hey, guess what? We're going to retire. You're going to fucking check it out on your own time and be an adult. And he goes, you got it. And then murdered them horribly. Woo. So we're going to go through it. I hope you got something to drink. We're having some homemade cider, blueberry cider here in the FFOP studio. And yikes. So another thing too, like this doesn't hide any of the gruesome shit, right? We're going to be talking, the prosecutor's going to be talking about all the grisly details. So if you're okay with like the lighthearted shit of interrogation relatively, because they don't really, like we haven't gone into anything super graphic yet. This, for me, is sort of light, but for some people it might be pretty hardcore because he annihilated his parents in a horrifying way that we'll get to. So viewer disclaimer and
Discretion
advised and all other good shit. So here we go.
You may be seated. Does the state waive the call, jury? Defense waive the call. Welcome back, everyone.
Oh, he'll give you the context.
Thanks for that break. We're ready to continue with our trial. If you recall, when we last left off, the state had concluded its case in chief. Once again, the defendant has no burden of proof in this case, but he is given an opportunity to present evidence to witnesses and exhibits if he wishes to do so. So this is his opportunity. At this time, Mr. Halstead, Mr. Stevens, do you wish to present evidence on behalf of the defendant? All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the parties have agreed to a stipulation, and what a stipulation is, it means they agree to certain facts, and I'm going to read the stipulation into the record. You can consider it as if it was testimony presented to you.
So just real quick, you notice how where we're at in time is right after the case was been presented by the state, and they go, that's it. Do with it what you will. Defense, you're up. He said, defense, you got anything? His scarecrow of a public defender. I think he's a public defender anyway. Skeletal man. I hope we get to see him. But nope. Sorry. No thanks. We're good. Thank you. Defense, Joel Guy Jr. Good. You keep this trial rolling,
Judge. Parties have agreed to stipulate to the following facts. On Tuesday, October 29, 2016, the defendant, Joel Guy, was arrested in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the murders of his parents, Lisa and Joel Guy. He was booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. Okay, there we go. So there's obviously Joel Guy. And look at his poor, sad attorney. Like, maybe if I feel like it will do the closing arguments of the defendant, but they're so short and they're like, hey. And by the way, if you watch this all the way through on your own time or with us, what could he say, right? I'm saying with the benefit of hindsight, but you will after this. On the same day. During the booking process, his fingerprints and palm prints were taken and entered into the AFIS automated fingerprint information system. Brad Park lifted a palm print and fingerprint from the crime scene on Golden View Way in Knoxville, Tennessee, and entered that unknown print into the AFIS system and received a list of possible matches, including the defendant, Joel Michael Guy. Joel Guy's prints were in the AFIS system because he had been arrested on this case. Okay, just real quick, since this obviously the trial is at the height of COVID, you can see everybody's mask.
I was going to ask what year this was. Was it last year or the year before?
I think this was 2020. When it doesn't matter. It was fairly recent, but I feel like everybody, because you see the guy drinking,
right.
The officer, everybody just like looks super uncomfortable. And I feel like Joel Guy Jr., like when they were getting him ready to go to the court, like, you got to put something on your face, you dick. COVID's a thing. He's like, what do you have that's like large, obnoxious, and basically worthless? But it'll also let me role play as like a welder because I never had a real job.
I think it'd be cool.
Prior to Brad Park's inquiry, Joel Guy has no prior criminal record, and that is a stipulation. Does the state so stipulate?
Glad to know that.
Any further proof on behalf of the defense? All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point you have...
Moving on.
Just as a spoiler alert, if you're not familiar with this case, a piece of evidence was introduced that Joel Guy Jr. himself named the Book of Premeditation.
What?
Received all the evidence that will be presented to you to decide this case. The next part of the trial will be the closing statements of the attorneys. As I told you at the beginning of our trial, statements of attorneys are not evidence. However, they can be very helpful to you in understanding the evidence that was presented, as well as my instructions of law that I will give you after their
That's a strange
argument. So
little-
I do encourage you to
I enjoy this judge. Like, there are some judges out there, like if you do watch courtroom footage and stuff, there are some out there that are real reserved, and there are some that are, it just feels like most of the ones, especially these big cases, whoever hands out the ticket for the judge, like if they know it's going to be a big case, the powers that be must go like, who's the nicest judge we got? Or who,
Right. Who's the
or
best
like,
talker?
Yeah, like with Nasser, they're like, who do we give Nasser? And they gave that woman who like wouldn't take shit.
Yeah.
And like the sensitiveness of this trial dealing with parents and stuff, they gave this Southern gentleman to Joel Guy Jr. and he did not deserve him.
first couple of LEDs.
We might have to skip past some of this
Is that good
stupid
enough,
stuff.
General? Is that too dark?
I don't think so.
Oh, there we go. We're gonna see some.
Also, are you planning on standing at the podium, or are you going to move around?
Ah, there's Joel. Ah.
So, okay, what was his plea? Did he plead guilty in this?
No,
is
he pled not guilty.
And because we're not seeing anything from the defense, did they literally have nothing to defend him with, except for the
There-
fact that he wrote that book?
Well, no, there's a. It's not even a mountain. It's like a mountain range of evidence against this fool.
Well, that's fine. But what was their like?
Their defense was
He didn't
prove it. Like, okay, so spoiler alert. I'll just give you a little bit of the snippet. Like, so one of the closing arguments for the defense was that, hey, his story checks out. His story was he came down for Thanksgiving and went back home. He did that. The book of premeditation. Who did anybody get a handwriting sample? No. I
end.
say he's innocent. Case closed and thank you. And he turns into dust and blows away. Welcome, Polly's
Hey,
Cracker.
Polly's Cracker. Thanks for joining.
But yeah, like their defense was nothing. Like they had the defense of a fish that had been caught and is already in the bottom of the boat. Like there are some people out there who, despite all the evidence, want to put everybody through the rigmarole of a trial because, they still have a modicum of control.
Yeah.
As soon as, they're guilty or the plea is struck or the backdoor deal is struck, then that's it. You have to go to jail.
Right.
But if you're petulant and childish and stupid, or if you just want to be a pain in the ass, you spend 4 days, weeks, months, however long you can draw it out. You can do a Darrell fucking what's his nuts, the guy who ran through the parade in Wisconsin, Darrell what's his nuts. Like, his name escapes me, but yeah, like make yourself a big nuisance as you want. You can gum up the gears of the machine, but you can't stop it from grinding you up.
I do have a lapel mark if you need it, General.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just start by echoing.
So there's the family,
here,
more or
who said
less.
In the beginning, thank you for being here, especially during these unprecedented times in the middle of a global pandemic. We are thankful that you're here and you're fulfilling your civic duty to serve as jurors in this case.
Would there really be a comma
on behalf of the
next
state
to
of Tennessee, thank you for being
his
here.
name and then Junior?
As you're aware, this is the state of
Things don't
Tennessee
have to
versus
look good when they're
Michael Guy
presented in
Jr..
court.
He is charged with 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder for the murders of Lisa Guy and Joel Guy Sr., 3 counts of felony murder for the killing that is committed in the perpetration of the killing of Joel Guy Sr., and then for 2 felony murder counts for a killing perpetrated in the commission of thefts, one against Lisa Guy, one against Joel Guy Sr.
Yeah, he took like the money out of their wallets. Like, what a loser. But one of the things I want to point out here is, so like there are a bunch of different types of family annihilators, right? Like Chris Watts is probably like the most famous pop culturally. But when it comes to like the kid killers, as in the kids who grow up to kill their parents,
Like Grant Amato.
yeah, like Grant Amato, or I just watched one. So like it's always one of two things that happens is like the hammer swings too hard one way or the other. It's either the kids were abused and one day they snapped, or one parent was manipulative and they get caught in a web of whatever and blah, blah, blah. Or you get like this where they're treated so good, quote unquote, and spoiled rotten and they never have to lift a finger. And that entitlement builds into this, I don't even know what to call it. Like it's an unstoppable force. Like in Grant and in Joel, it was built up to such an extent that when the cessation of that money stream happens, the ability to think ahead is gonzo. Like with Grant and with Joel here, you know, the inheritance and yada, yada, yada. But when you think about like how much money, especially Grant and Joel, he's been, what's his ticket to like price tag to life? Who knows? But when you look at Grant Amato, and I blew $260,000 on Sylvie in 6 months, killing your parents will get you another 7 months of yanking it, Grant. And like, if Joel kills his parents, he'll get to finish college, which he is doing on his parents' dime. And whatever he gets of the inheritance will last until whatever, but he'll still have dead parents.
Right.
And then he'll still be broke. And P.S. he has like half sisters or half siblings that I don't know. I have not looked into it deeply, but I feel like they would have a stake in their parents.
As well as 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. As you know, there's
not
a great deal of proof in this case, a lot of evidence to consider. The best way for me to stay organized is to present this in a PowerPoint.
Yeah, because of what he did to their bodies afterwards.
What we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is Thanksgiving weekend, 2016. We know
I love this PowerPoint.
Doesn't it look good?
Between Joel and his mother that he is leaving Baton Rouge.
Came from a Commodore 64.
He is heading to the...
So while he's going over the timeline here, which is more or less unimportant, one of the things that the family members, that were interviewed and they testified to later was like, Joel, he looks like a fat, troll. And he was always standoffish and always weird and always, at the very least goofy, at the very most like, eh. But the weekend before he committed this atrocity, everybody was like, he was interactive and stuff. And I thought, what was the reason? Like, why flip that switch so close to the end? Like, because, hindsight being 2020, everybody go, yeah, he did act weird. And then he did this super weird thing. But if you're going to do this and not want to get caught for it later, which when we get through all of this, should be like, did he? It just seems like don't change your behavior, right? But
they had a family gathering on my birthday.
He's dumb.
2016.
Testimony from Joel Guy.
Also, if this is 2020,
on the 25th, Joel Guy is
4 years ago, like 4 years prior to his sentencing.
Don't take 2020 as fact. I don't actually know.
Well, I mean,
guessing.
COVID, like 2020 to 2022.
It might have been 2019 because COVID
started in 2020.
No, COVID-19. The 19 is for 2019. That's when it started. So this it probably is 2020, but moral of the story is, yeah.
At least 3 years later. That's crazy.
What? That's the shit. Like, the justice system works as such. Most people take a plea. 3% of all people not convicted, but charged with something go through the criminal justice system because our system is slow. And there are more criminals than there are people who care to prosecute them. So it takes time.
Present in Burgoynesville with his father, Joe Guy Sr., one day after Thanksgiving to assist him in bringing a boat to the property. We know based on the evidence that the homicides occurred between the hours of 12:30 and roughly 3 p.m. on November 26th, 2016. And all this time, ladies and gentlemen, there's a plan in place. Joel Guy took care to
wrote a
plan
book.
These homicides accordingly. He went into great detail in how he wrote it out. So his plan, as you'll see and as the proof is demonstrated, was to kill his father first. Wait
His
until his
own
mother
words.
was at Walmart, wait for a window of time.
At
He
like
could lure her
$500
upstairs
grand.
and kill her as well. He then planned to manipulate the scene, even up to starting a fire. He had a guide for hot water heaters in his backpack in the guest bedroom.
Real quick, I realize that everybody is going to have a different like number in their barometer for like what would be acceptable for someone else to get killed over. But like, people get killed in the street over phones and $20 or sandwiches. And so any number seems ridiculous, right? You killed both of your parents for $250,000 a pop. And this is hypothetical, by the way. Like this is gross, not net. So we're not factoring taxes or the other adult siblings coming in on this. And so the amount of, I don't know, just disregard, like, right? Because it's such a small amount. When do this thought experiment, how much money has been spent on you or have you passed through your hand through your entire life, right? And you go, oh my God, it's staggering. Just take a week and then multiply that by 1 billion. And then you go, well, 500,000, what is that in like when the rubber hits the road, right? Like if a normal person, middle class, middle of the road type person, 6 years, right? Maybe
Probably
if you didn't
6
work,
to 10, yeah.
6 to 10. But then you're living the rest of your life. If you're not like a narcissist or a sociopath, you're living with that baggage.
Yeah.
And not only that, like even if this was a perfect crime, somebody in this situation is going to be looked at. So not only are you going to be like, yeah, I got barely anything, but now everybody looks at me as if some shit was shady because who else is going to be a person of interest?
I thought he killed his parents for $500. LOL. Mervin is blocking the.
No, yeah, 500.
500,000.
Half a G.
Either a hair dryer or a hair curler next to a heater. What's the motive here? We don't have the burden to prove the motive, but the motive's pretty apparent in this case, and the motive is the money.
He wrote it in his
He
book
wants
again.
$500,000 that he is the second in line to get if Lisa Guy untimely dies. So if we look at the timeline of the defendant's travel,
Knoxville,
we know
Tennessee.
from the Vigilant Solutions exhibits that were entered in this case that he is seen driving to Knoxville in the cell.
I'm sorry, this is the best PowerPoint. This is the best thing ever. It makes me.
Is it?
Not like literally the best. It's so terrible that it's good.
Okay, so like this to you is like 90s commercials to me.
Lieutenant Scott Henning, when he inventoried that trunk, that he had stopped in Georgia to go to McDonald's on the 23rd.
Just like
Show his route of travel on the 23rd.
a mountain of evidence. Phones, cameras, like.
Next, we know that he leaves Knoxville and is in Meridian, Mississippi at 12:31 on 11/28.
That's where the
that being Monday
Simpsons
morning,
children,
Monday
or at
morning.
least Bart and his friends, went to go
Here's
see the
what
Sun
stock out.
Sphere. Oh, crap. I got to get YouTube Premium. All right. Come on, baby, wake up. There we go.
Come on, baby.
Baby?
He's again
There we
spotted continuing south towards Louisiana, Baton Rouge to be specific.
That's another thing that's crazy about you guys back east. One of the things that comes up when I'm into true crime content is like, here in the U.S., in the West or the Southwest where we are, there aren't toll bridges or toll highways or cameras on the, for way stations or pass points or any of that shit. And you guys all have that back east and down south to a lesser extent. So I go, oh man, no one ever thinks about that, but you got like a spider web of cameras you got to go through and checkpoints, and like you have e-passes and shit. So there's constantly a ticker on you. And then you can ratchet that up to 11, because then like when I hear or see material from like the UK and England especially, where there's a CCTV camera every 4 feet so you can see
Everything.
literally like their entire walk home. I go, well, what the fuck? It's so weird because, what I'm getting at is like the terrible things still happen, right? Whether you're under constant surveillance or no surveillance, people are still getting chopped up left, right, and center. And all we can do is all this security is giving us is like,
Watching it after the fact.
yeah, after the fact, which is nice. Like otherwise people would just get away with it. But that's the best we can do is like pieced together. Because again, you can't, like, it's not Minority Report. You can't read people's minds. But all you can do is look back, trace the steps, and be like, there it was, which is more than we had before.
The only toll Kayla's been through is Oklahoma. I wonder if the Middle North has tolls.
This wasn't a toll, but we blew through a pay highway in California.
Yeah, we
once.
totally did.
And P.S., fuck your pay highways, California.
It is very confusing writing.
Not only that, it's stupid.
Their verbiage.
Like, not the time or the place, but fuck that shit.
They inventoried a horror scene, as they put it. You saw the proof. You saw the evidence of what they encountered
Walmart
inside
video.
that residence.
So if you get into this case, and I encourage you, if you're a true crime person, to look into it because the details are fascinating, and the body cam that you get is interesting and also heartbreaking because this is one of those cases where like there's a dog involved, and every time there's a dog involved and they've got to clear a house, like my heart always goes out to that thing that's locked God knows where for God knows how long, and these officers have to make sure there's nobody else in the house who can kill them. But the whole time, especially in Joel Guy's case here, the dog is going apeshit because he locked it in a laundry room. And to speed up decomposition, he cranked the heat of the house up.
Oh, that poor dog.
You heard about interviews that investigator McCord conducted with family members.
What up, Tony?
That
Hey,
put him on the
Tony.
path to establish that Joe Michael Guy Jr. was present for Thanksgiving, and he was no longer there. We then heard about the receipt, the crucial piece of evidence that led investigators to follow up and to dig deeper into who the suspect was in this case.
Oh, jeez.
We saw the video transactions from Walmart identifying Joel Michael Guy Jr. We saw his license.
That's another thing. No matter where you are on the planet, if you have a big box store that answers for a Walmart, if you don't have that, here's the thing. Just like all the pay highways and everywhere else, like Walmarts are full of cameras.
Yeah.
But everybody, bar none, if you get caught, you buy your kill kit from Walmart. There might as well be a fucking aisle in Walmart for kill kits that just has a guard at the end. So when anybody picks one up, you just grab them right away.
Right, you're immediately arrested.
Like if, you go down an aisle that's darker than all the others, it's nothing but like canvas sacks that have duct tape, rope, bleach, zip ties,
shovel,
gloves, a shovel, a mask, garbage bags, a tarp,
lighter fluid,
all the shit that's in every one of these goddamn places, and just be like, there we go. And maybe hide the guard in like a bush at the end of the aisle.
just in a ghillie suit. Like,
yeah. And like, just as soon as someone goes in there to grab it, because they will, everybody who gets their kill kits gets them at Walmart. And then, for our neighbors up north are Canadian Tires, which would have gotten you Rocky Rambo and Twitchell. Make a murder aisle. People are stupid enough to already buy their accoutrement there. Just let the dumb ones do it automatically, and we'll catch the ones who avoid the murder aisle and make it piecemeal later. But it might be nice to close that loop a little bit.
Yeah, lower the
Displayed as he
percentage.
left. That was at roughly 3:35 p.m. on the 26th at Turkey Creek here in Knox County, Tennessee. We learned that his mother was there roughly 3 hours previously, purchasing a long list of groceries that we ultimately found in the foyer area.
That's the other thing about this that just like, because when you're into true crime, you sort of put yourself in all the places and all the positions at some point or another. You play the detective, you play the murderer, you play the victim, you play like the bystander, because you want to get like an emotional taste of what everybody is going through. And the one thing that I get utterly is like the lack of a fight that family members put up against one another, because these are people who aren't supposed to kill you.
Right.
Like if it's a murder in the street, or if it's a robbery and there's like a big fight, or if it's an assault, like you get that. But like with the Broken Arrow murders or, any family type situation, like the shock of it, someone you grew up with or married or gave birth to now like snapping and going crazy, it must, because like, just think of it like this: like the Broken Arrow murders with the Bever family. They were a huge, weird, stay-at-home, homeschool, religious, weird family, so they had a fuck ton of kids. And they blew through all but 2 and killed the parents. And so that's how long it takes for the shock to wear off. Like, in that family of umpteen kids plus 2 adults, they killed all but 2. One, not for lack of trying, she almost died, and the other because she was a baby and asleep in a crib. So, like, if someone's going crazy in public, people will snap out of it because it's a stranger doing a bad thing. If it's a family member, you know, we just let it happen or put up minimal resistance.
Right.
And it's terrifying, right? I can't imagine attacking or being attacked by someone I see every day and I'm related to, and what I would do. Because you put yourself in that situation, you go, well, in the moment, you go, well, what if this is a prank? That then went horribly too far. But by the time you realize it's not a prank, you've probably been stabbed 4 or 5 times or shot or whatever.
So Investigator Jeremy McCord, he's with the Knox County Sheriff's Office. He
He
was serving at that time in the Major Crimes Division. He responded first to a welfare
My
check.
favorite slide so far.
I can't handle this.
So this is what the first tip-off was. And since they were leaving and going and retiring or whatever, to sell the house. So the front lock of the front knob of the door had one of those realtor locks that has like a code or whatever. Mm-hmm. And this seems crazy, and I'm not sure why he did this, but I'm not sure why he did anything. He took that doorknob off.
Like the whole knob?
Yeah. Like to get rid of the key or something.
No, he probably didn't know the code to get in.
Well, no, he was in and out of the house. He removed the handle with the key in it. I think in case the realtor came by, the moral of the story is it doesn't matter. The one of the crazy parts is like that hole was blasting heat out, which was another like red flag when they did a welfare check. If there's no doorknob and it's like a blast furnace, cut like they could make blow glass through it. You know what the fuck?
That's strange.
But like, what a red flag! Leave the doorknob.
Yeah, if he could get in, if he knew the code to get in.
He had the key. The thing just held a key
to get into the house.
Yeah, it was like he doesn't need the code. He had it on his key ring.
Oh, he had his own key.
Yeah,
I see.
this was his parents' house.
We heard from Detective Ballard about how he responded. Knocked on the door.
His
rang
eyes
the
are so
doorbell, went
big.
around back,
No, he
listened
just
for a
sat
dog.
there like a toad the
Again,
whole
went to the
time
door,
like this.
Well, what else is he gonna do?
He did take the
Investigator
stand, and it
McCord,
was
then received an additional call with more information about Lisa Guy supposed to be at a retirement party, as this was her last working week before she moved to Burgoynesville. Some of the things he considered when he got to the residence: he found it odd that the house was for sale and there was no realtor box in the front door. He took that into consideration. He also took into consideration that both the vehicles that were registered to Lisa and Joel Guy Sr. were at the residence and no one was answering the door.
Why does
then
nobody
moves around to the
ever
rear of the
think about the
residence.
cars? The fact that
sometimes they do. It's just it doesn't matter because whether they leave the cars there or put them somewhere, it doesn't matter because every time they put the cars somewhere, they're caught on video doing it because
Right.
they leave them in places like fucking
Walmart.
Walmart or a Dunkin' Donuts or or a McDonald's where it has like a fuck ton of cameras. So it doesn't matter. Like the car's the least of your worries.
yeah, Kayla says he looks so bored. Someone should give him an Etch-a-Sketch.
He's such a lump.
He finds at the rear of the residence there's a back door with the doorknob absent,
There you go.
a hole instead. And upon investigating that hole in the door, he describes that he could smell
As you can see, here he is looking through the hole. That's his eye. You can see the eye line right there.
chemicals, and he could feel heat emitting from where that doorknob should have been. He further described that upon looking at the front door, the doorknob for the front door matched the deadbolt on the back.
Huh. He swapped them for some reason.
We saw that ultimately the investigator and accompanying officers were able to gain access into the garage. They were able to open one of the guy's vehicles and hit a garage door opener, which ultimately opened the garage. We heard about what he encountered once he opened that garage. He described that he could still feel heat. He could smell chemicals present in the garage.
One of the things, if I don't remember if they showed it or not. If they do, I will skip over because it's long. But when they're running through the house doing that welfare check, and they're like, "Sheriff's office, we're gonna check your welfare," and they get to like, the place is a fucking mess, and they're going up the stairs, and it's so funny because like sometimes you get those cops who are like, "What the fuck," and they like, they swear like sailors, and then you get those guys who are, like, "Oh gosh." So it's like all these dudes, guns drawn, like the detective's there in his suit, and they're all freaked out. The dog is going ape shit up somewhere they can't see, and there's just chaos. And the guy's like, "Is that blood or poo poo? Blood or poo poo?
Jiminy Jillikers.
Is that blood or poo poo?" So funny. I mean, in the midst of the horror.
Ultimately, the officers make a decision based on what they've encountered.
This guy, yeah, he's the one. Maybe he's the guy who says
into that
poo poo.
residence and conduct a welfare check inside of 11434 Golden View Lane on November the 28th, 2016. And you recall seeing the officers on the body camera with weapons drawn based on what they encountered outside. To make sure everyone is okay, they are processing the kitchen, or not processing, but kind of traversing through the varying rooms of the downstairs. At that point, Investigator McCord, if you recall, he said that, nothing was really wrong there. There were some odd things.
Something slipped my mind, and I think it might come up here as they walk through the kitchen.
I was considering, but nothing showed any signs of struggle, but it was concerning that there were groceries on the floor, the foyer. It was concerning that there were chemicals right when you came in the door.
Yeah, why did he leave the groceries that he bought?
He attacked his mom as she brought the groceries in. So she had her arms, probably full of bags of shit, and he just jumped on her and then left the shit there. But in addition to that, yes, when he brought his cleaning supplies, he basically just dumped them in the foyer too.
Yeah.
Because he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And then he went home to like sleep it off for a couple days. Because here's the thing about murders is
It's
like you
tiring.
can take as long as you want to clean up after them. Like people go missing all the time, and no one's going to be like, "Hey, where are the guys?" They get 3-4 months tops before anyone gives a shit, right, Joel?
All that changes
Idiot.
when they make entry into that stairwell.
Oh yeah, okay, so play a little bit of it. You hear the dog?
Oh, the poor dog.
Knox County Sheriff's Office! We're here to check your welfare!
He's in a damn suit.
Wait. It's the detective.
And
dang
you
it.
recall when Investigator
I thought he was going to say the blood or poo-poo line.
McCord testified about the
He won't
kind of
put
what
that
he
in his
was
professional
perceiving at the
PowerPoint.
time and how it made him feel based on what he encountered upon making it to the second floor.
Oh, just like gut-wrenching, right? Like imagine, because on top of being in someone else's house, right? So you're in someone else's unfamiliar to you territory, weird smells, the heat is up, so it's hot. These guys are probably sweating their asses off on top of like the stress, but on then the heat, and they've got to move to this house, and that dog is going ape shit, and it's just like, if you've ever been in an empty house, there's always a weird vibe because they're so still.
Yeah.
And like this must have that plus the added like vibrance of the heat because again, he cranked it up to 1,000,000 degrees.
Of the residence at 11434 Golden View Lane. He stated, once we get upstairs, it's like the world does a 180. Everything gets turned upside down. He's initially seeing blood on the way up to the stairs, blood on the doggy gate, and then ultimately a horrific scene, which will later become apparent, the scene where Lisa Guy was executed and subsequently disarticulated. He said he could see straight down the hall, and he saw hands not connected to a body.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so that's part of the body cam footage is like he's coming up, Joel was attacked here in his exercise room Joel Sr.
Yeah.
And the guy's coming around the corner, and like it's fucking chilling. Because imagine, we've seen it in a movie, like think Jurassic Park. When the blonde chick goes to the place and Samuel L. Jackson's hand comes out of the dark and she goes, Dr. Such and Such, and it's his arm, and she goes, wow! That's what fucking happened here, because as he's walking around, he sees Joel Guy Sr.'s hands laid out on the floor, and he goes, oh! Because like, you go, oh, thank God, there's maybe somebody here. And then like as your eye takes, your brain catches up to your eyes, it moves up to the wrist, that it then stops. And you go, what the fuck?
We also heard that from Officer Ballard, who experienced the same thing, as well as the other deputies who responded on November 26th.
Who all vomited also.
With regard to finding the physical bodies in these tubs right before you, ladies and gentlemen, these 2 tubs.
So yeah, that's the thing. They found, it's totally brutal. As body cam footage goes on, there were, those 2 big moving bin storage style tote tubs that his parents' bodies were in, just sort of denaturing in acid. And that's what he's fucking, like, again, I bring this concept up a lot, but it bears repeating. It's never been easier to be horrified into a coma as a jury. Because back in the old days, before we had color, photo, video, and audio, you go, whoa, here, the descriptions, and here's the evidence, and oh my God. And now you can see like the, minute by minute of a man being horrified into a coma, essentially coming across these 2 tubs with these 2 people in their hands and everything. And then just like as a civilian having to sit there and take it, and at the end be like, yeah, we saw all that, and we're pretty sure.
Right. I mean, obviously.
Jesus.
Describe that as being gut-wrenching.
Oh, they're the tubs. Okay.
Something he's never experienced before.
There's Joel. Look at him.
Just chilling.
Just fucking reacting like a fucking lichen colony.
Yeah.
Responded to, all the homicides that he worked.
Him and Grant need to be in the same cell.
Like, at least Grant... Grant was at least delusional in that he could put up small talk. Like, Joel here is just like, what's
better, though? Do you want somebody that has nothing to say, or somebody that has too much to
that's
say?
the thing. It's like nobody's ever going to find every quality they want in a case. Because every case walks that line of being interesting with the details in the resolution, because for me at least, that's part of it. I don't like those unsolved mysteries that are popular in true crime, because there are always these horrifying things that happen to people that got no resolution. And narratively, at the very least, what we want is someone at the end to be like, got him.
Yeah.
So we can at least pretend for a few moments that things haven't been utterly destroyed for somebody, in their perspective. But again, what is justice? Who knows? Because again, it seems lopsided that someone like this lump of shit here, can go and murder his parents with months to plan.
Yeah.
Like, he literally had so much time and he put so much energy into this plan. And then, after his parents have been wiped from this gay earth, he then gets to spend the next few months and or years putting together a hindsight reason as to why it all happened. Meanwhile, they're still cold in their graves, which is essentially just a soup tin for both of them.
He told us that he will never get those smells out of his head or his dreams. So we talk about
95 degrees.
95.
with regard to this case. We'll start with the
That poor dog.
Okay.
counts 1 and 2
Gay.
being premeditated first-degree murders. Now the judge is going to instruct you
Jesus.
as to what the state of Tennessee must prove to you. Element.
Okay, I don't know if we'll get to it or if they get to it, but here's the thing too. What's the one thing that, it maybe even beats like crimes against children to most people, right? Like, what is the one thing that you can say, well, for most people, you can say murder, crimes against children, children's murder, yada, yada, yada. What's the one thing that we go above all that probably is the worst? Is when you involve cooking elements. Jeffrey Dahmer, anybody who like, even if there's a whiff or a hint of cannibalism, like the lady in Australia who like made steaks out of her lover after chopping up his pelt and hanging it out to dry.
Yeah.
Moral of the story is he put his mom's head in a pot and it was on the stove, and these detectives had to walk past it and did not realize until they came through, because the oven, the oven was obviously turned on too, full blast to keep the house hot. So there's his mom's head in a pot and had been there for days.
Oh my
days, people.
God.
Well,
Okay,
beyond a reasonable
hold on.
doubt.
Johnny Sims says, as a prosecutor, this must have been a pretty easy case to try. Voluminous evidence, but facts were pretty damning.
That's why I'm
yeah.
sure there's no interrogation footage, and even if there was, they'd be like, who gives a shit, right? There are just some cases out there that to spoiler it, they find him headed back to the scene of the crime with a meat grinder in his trunk.
We have
Nice.
3 essential elements as it has to do with first-degree murder, premeditated,
You like the Law and Order font and
I
colors?
cannot, like, seriously.
Dun dun.
premeditated first-degree
The
murder.
presentation
Art
is
imitates life.
the fucking best thing ever.
Joel Michael Guy
Intentionally.
unlawfully killed his father, Joel Michael Sr.
Not
and he
intentional.
unlawfully killed his mother, Lisa
There was
Guy,
no malicious
and
content.
that in
Hashtag
doing
Sarah
so,
Boone.
he acted intentionally, and that the killing was premeditated.
Intentional. Well, he named a book after it.
Oh,
The judge
yeah.
will further instruct you as to what the legal definition of premeditation is.
But just ask Joel Guy Jr. He wrote a book.
Well, and the craziest thing is, like, all closing arguments have to at some point touch upon these base legal concepts, because it's all well and good to get wowed by flashy details, but the nitty gritty is like, here's the shit you need to remember. And if we got those on lock in your head, bingo. Like, fuck your emotions, fuck what you think what the law should be. Here's what it is. Can you fill this out?
Victim.
I'm just looking for
So we
spelling
look at the
errors.
instruments
in
or the
this
means
PowerPoint.
on how these gruesome homicides were committed in this case.
Here's the
We know that
means.
there was at least 2 knives in the exercise room.
That's an old ass iron.
Where Joel Guy Sr.'s hands were ultimately recovered. We know that there was further a knife next to the pile of clothes belonging to Lisa Guy.
And he is just staring at the pictures of the knives that he is now remembering using on his parents.
Yeah.
And this is how he acts outwardly.
Yeah.
We know that there is a knife in the master bedroom sink. We know in the guest bathroom there is a United States Marine Corps K-bar knife. We know there's chemicals.
Why
We know there's other
did he
objects.
leave everything? Not that I'm trying to be like, Joel Guy Jr., if you're going to do this, do it better. But why would he leave all of this shit there?
He's that's the thing. That's the easiest part about all of this to understand. Joel Guy Jr. was an entitled, lazy fuckwad.
Yeah.
So when, this was probably the first time he ever like legitimately bent effort towards something that he wasn't forced to, like school or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So now, but I say that because he's never, obviously look at him, he's never pushed himself physically or mentally. So, when you're this lazy tub of shit who's been cashing checks that weren't yours your entire life, and you put forth a supreme effort of not only planning, but then putting forth like the energy of actually attacking and killing your own parents, and then doing what he did to them, like, it tuckers you out. So he had to go home and take a nap.
Well, I get
Plus,
that.
he cut up his hands, and he was like, ow, my hand.
My thing is, like, he did dismemberment and all of that stuff, and that takes so much effort, like you said. Why not just burn the house down?
He was going to. He just didn't have the time because, again, he was lazy. Yeah, he had to go get medical treatment. Like they'll probably show the Walmart footage where he goes and buys
like Band-Aids.
yeah, and his hands are wrapped in, like, again, like, fucking. But again, it's like picking nits in the fault and the logic of killing your parents. Like, obviously, there's nothing right about that plan, and it was never going to go right.
Right.
So
Right,
it's
correct,
not like,
yeah.
why didn't you do X, Y, Z? It never goes well because everybody in your life is part of an interconnected web that spans the globe. And when people blink out of existence unexpectedly, we stand up and take notice.
Well, right. And that's like he wasn't expecting that employee of his mother to call and
But
be
you
like,
don't have to. Like, it's just taken as a given that if these, like, that's why BTK or the Green River or Jack the Ripper or all of these other monsters attack people in society that are basically disposable, homeless, prostitutes, this, that, or the other. You know, you can get away with 36 murders under your belt, or like Samuel Little with like 90, because you're attacking and removing people who don't have strong ties. And so there's a method to that madness. When your method is, or when your madness is money, your method is get rid of them, and you don't think like, oh, wait, there's a lot of people invested.
yeah, it'd be like, he could have waited until she was officially retired, and then their coworkers wouldn't have been looking for
Well,
her.
no, he had to act because they were going to cut him off. But then again, there's no, even with his book of premeditation, look where we are. This is an idiot who thought he needed a book to like, you know, keep all of his ideas together and failed at even the basics.
Yeah.
And with regard to the $500,000, ladies and gentlemen, what this case is about in terms of motive, we know that there's a breakdown of beneficiaries where Joel Michael Guy Jr. is.
So maybe the other Guy children are just Joel guys, because I want to say, or no, maybe it's hers. Because like his siblings, I think they're sisters, are only half siblings. But it's weird that
It's just him on there.
yeah, just him and his son. But what about the other kids? It always makes me go like, what about the other kids?
They could have been on hers.
But this is hers.
This is his.
No, this is where her money, if she dies, the money goes to Joel Guy Sr.
Oh,
and
I
Joel
see.
Guy Jr.
Sorry.
The
Yeah.
contingent beneficiary.
I'm surprised they don't have those blocked out.
Senior is the primary.
Yeah, try and call that number now. See what
No,
happens.
it's a social.
Life insurance policy.
He's in jail and one's
How do
dead.
we know that Joel
What are you gonna
Michael
do with
Guy
it?
Jr. is aware of?
I'm going to steal Joel Guy Sr.'s social security number. Try and open up a credit card. Yeah, fuck. I'm Dennis Rader. I'd like to open up a credit card.
I'm referring to the juniors, but
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm Joel Guy Jr. Can I get a MasterCard? Yeah, hey, never heard of that name before. Come on down.
That.
We're
First of all,
Visa.
we consider his notebook, his book of premeditation, where he identifies the valuation, the value, money, all mine, $500,000. He knows exactly what he's in line to receive if his mom were to die.
Look, this is a little snippet of the book of premeditation. That's Joel Guy's handwriting. They didn't get tested.
all
If his
mine.
dad were to die.
His handwriting is terrible.
When looking at that first-degree murder in terms of what we have to prove his identity, that Joel Michael Guy.
Dun dun.
PowerPoint.
So, and not for nothing. Like, even though this PowerPoint seems like woefully inept, I think it's deceptively genius. Like, all the fonts, all the graphics, it's very easy for dumb people like me to follow, but also the color scheme he is choosing is very indicative of the emotional journey he's trying to take us on. I think it's a masterpiece, even though it does look like it was thrown together by like a 12-year-old in a computer's
Like, yeah, this is what I learned in high school.
like first computer class.
Yeah.
Killed and so
Sarah
on and
Anderson
so
says
forth.
Johnny Sims sounds an awful like one of the prosecutors who tried this case. For example, the one speaking in the video you're playing, who I happen to be sitting next to.
So with regard to identity, what you've seen, ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, there we go.
Written
Joel
words.
Guy's written words.
I can't even write in a straight
What was
line
connected to him
on lined
certain
paper.
pieces of material such as set her phone to send me a text message late Sunday to prove that I was in BR, being Baton Rouge, and she was, quote unquote, alive.
Quote unquote. He wrote this to himself for all intents and purposes, right? The Book of Premeditation or any other thing like Twitchell's serial killer confessions. Those are ostensibly works of art that you would keep for yourself and take to the grave because they can send you to your grave. So, all that being said, like the cute quotations during the live, like, are you later going to read this back and be like, what did I mean by alive? P.S. Also, as we're sitting at this, like the whole phone thing, this is the whole same bullshit that Chandler Halderson did with his fucking mom and dad when he killed them. He like sent himself texts back and forth. And again, like I'm sure to the idiot on the street who doesn't understand like telemetry and data and pinging and cell phone, telemetry. If you're sitting on a couch and you're holding both phones being like, I'm cool, how are you? Great, what are you doing? Nothing, I'm watching CSI. They're going to be able to like look at those records later and be like, so you were holding both phones, right, Chandler?
And the pings will be the same location.
Murder, he wrote. Totally! Oh my God.
He wrote.
But like inept murder, he wrote.
Yeah.
Like if Angela Lansbury were a man trapped in a room with a slow carbon monoxide leak. Denature proteins reference.
We can prove his identity through his own spoken words, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, he used the program called Snagit. I'm sure he did to get that highlighting in those red lines because I use that program.
Diabolical.
Looks good.
Here's the thing, guys. Not that you need this advice. But
Is this him talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the thing. When you go to jail, everything you do there, like forget, like when you're outside of jail, right? There's a good chance you're under a camera at most shopping places or on most highways and byways. In jail, not only are you on camera, but you're being audio recorded in every interaction you make. Like, again, this is another tie to Chandler Halderson case where like the jail phone calls are so fucking telling. And I don't know why everybody seems to forget that, but I'm sure it gets lost in the delusional stew of the rest of the things you're fucking forgetting, like not being a fucking monster.
I don't really have much.
Forget exploitation of privacy. Yeah.
You do. You do. Eventually you're going to meet somebody, and you've claimed that I haven't been an albatross or anything before, but I certainly would be now.
I don't know who he's talking to here.
In freaking prison. On that basis, I think you should probably just sort of
With a 2-minute warning before you start the call.
Mm.
move on with your life.
I want to know who he was talking to here.
I'm not going to try to
I don't like this font. It's very hard to read.
sort of, practical concerns we discussed earlier. And I may do that with a lawyer. Because I genuinely do want you to be happy.
Isn't it hilarious? Like you can't see it now, but they're using like, here's how shit goes, right? You have consumer grade electronics and programs, right? So that's basically cutting edge, and you can buy it at Best Buy or wherever. And then you got like business grade stuff, right? Which is like the operating system from the previous generation that the owners of all these companies have a long-standing relationship with. Like if we have released 10, they're not moving from 7. If they have 7, they're not moving, blah, blah, blah. And then you have like government institutions, right? Where like it's 2020, they're running Windows 95 and VLC player in a courtroom setting.
Yeah.
My numbers. So there you go.
Oh maybe this is his roommate.
I was gonna say it's a guy.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, his roommate. There's some interview or interrogation or whatever you want to call it, footage with him too, which is kind of interesting, but not really because he's sort of a dead fish too. But like, what a world! Like, because again, in a world where you killed your parents, like your family's not going to talk to you. Who are you going to have an emotional breakup with? Right? Your fucking college roommate.
Well, he keeps telling him, "I want you to be happy." Like,
a lot of these. Okay, there are so many cases that nothing is ever proven or nothing is ever concretely set forth, except in one of the most recent ones that I've experienced. But, you know, there'll always be like a hidden gay agenda or something that the prosecution will sometimes throw on.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, like Joel Guy Jr., nobody knows anything about him because he's a lump of mashed potatoes that's been left out in the sun for too long. I wouldn't even consider him to have sexual desire. I'm surprised he wanted money. The thing that I think he would want the most is like Mountain Dew and like Doritos. But
he looks like a bugle guy to me. He looks very plain.
Or like a Fritos dude.
Yeah.
He's like Frito pies and Mountain Dew diet.
Gay. Yeah. Tony says gay.
All right, you're the authority.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but yeah.
Okay, now that you say that, I'm kind of picking up on a lisp that I did not ever hear before while going through any of his stuff before. So
I'm on. I was thinking that when I heard a male voice respond.
Well, but I knew the context of the roommate, and knowing that he was a complete outcast from everybody, like it just like, especially in cases like this, the people who are closest to them who always escape disaster because they're forced into like a roommate or some type of situation, they go, yeah, I had no idea or whatever. But yeah, maybe they were roommates with benefits. Who knows?
His mom paid for his Mountain Dew and Doritos. I'm with Krista. It's all about the Bugles, the official chip of the Middle North.
He's not from the Middle North. He's from the South.
Look.
He's from Tennessee and Baton Rouge.
Whatever. He likes his Bugles.
Could you imagine this pasty fucking white bread piece of shit going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana for college?
No.
Oh my God. It's like a fucking... yeah, it's just like... I can't even think of an analogy where he would stand out appropriately with enough contrast. Like if someone took a dump on a Sunday, but even that is like, well, I mean, they can be a similar shape. Like this is an element from a different universe coming into ours and trying to interact.
David said gay agenda. That was my gay reference, but also, yeah, probably gay.
The gay agenda. They're coming for our kids.
We further prove his identity through fingerprints. You heard from...
He didn't wear gloves. He's also a dumbass.
I mean, what?
They were on the scene at 11434 Golden View Lane on the 28th and after.
Here's the thing with most...
I was surprised when he said he had a kid. No, he doesn't have a kid.
No, he doesn't have a kid.
No, Joel Guy Sr. was his dad that he killed. Joel Guy Jr. was his son. That was a confusing reference, yes.
I forgot what I was going to say. Let's move on.
After the crime scene was
Oh, I know. His plan had no redundancies. In any engineer or any sort of system that you have in place, from like tires on your car to like sending someone to space, there's multiple redundancies. If one fails, there's one or more to pick up the slack. Where Joel Guy Jr.'s plan had no redundancies. It was do this, 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 and this, and everything had to work out perfectly because at the end, he had to burn the house down. And even that had no fail-safes.
Yeah.
Because burning a house down doesn't always burn a house down.
Yep.
There are so many ways in which to get fucked over by fire because burning things is actually pretty difficult. The cavemen were right. And so when you have no... I mean, sure, he was grinding up the bodies and putting them in acid and all this shit. But again, like your Hail Mary is that the fire takes care of everything. And if you've ever looked into any crime where fire was used, they go, this is fishy.
This is suspicious.
This is suspicious, they say to themselves, and they bear mace each other.
Yes, Tony. Yeah, that was a confusing section. Yeah, we.
About
Yeah,
trying to
no.
lift latent fingerprints from within the residence. We also learned from the defendant's book of premeditation that he was trying.
But also, put this into perspective too. His DNA, fingerprints, and etc. would not be out of the norm in a place where he
was
visited.
always there.
Right. So I get why the
Wasn't he just
redundancies
there
were
for
skipped.
Thanksgiving?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
he was there the whole weekend. He had
Right.
multiple witnesses saying he was there being a weirdo and eating too much food. So, yeah, like incidental fingerprints and or blood, you can say I cut myself or whatever, that's the one thing. But no one's going to believe that you mangled your hands while trying to like skin carrots and nobody intervened on your behalf.
Right. I cut the turkey and cut my hand open.
When he was going to be there, by the use
'Cause
of
his hands were
gloves,
fucked.
And also
Really?
gloves.
Yeah.
It's apparent based
When you try to kill someone and they fight back, you're like, it's a blade. It's going to go all over the place.
Yeah.
And like, you know, God knows how quickly his dad clued into the fact that his son was a fucking monster and tried to get him back. But based on the problems with Joel's hands, I would say pretty quickly and pretty fiercely.
Right. Johnny Sims would be out of the norm under his father's fingernails, though.
Little bit.
Yeah.
in the photos. That
Really
the
hard
defendant certainly
handshake.
Wore gloves.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, I live there, so of course you're going to find things like my hair. And so like, oh, we found your dad's severed hand with like your scalp's worth of hair in it. I mean, not that he has that much.
We were horsing around.
Commission of the offense and after.
Just Jesus, man.
We saw his palm print that was ultimately lifted from the left side of the guest sink, next to the bag.
Which
that had the
wouldn't be
Walmart
something that
receipt
was out of
and
the norm
change
either.
From the medical supplies
But it was
that he
all around
bought,
this
Yeah.
after
evidence.
he was injured in a stroke.
And, you know, there's nothing overtly sinister about this, but it is. So here's what we're looking at. In the bathroom, the tubs and everything. So there's nothing, because there's a million wholesome reasons why you would do this, although I can't think of one off the top of my head. But to do all of this processing and cleaning and stuff, he pulled the shower head off of the shower and put a hose with a sprayer attachment. And I don't know why, but that shit hits me in such a gross way. When you see the hose hanging out of the shower spigot, and you go, fuck, dude. Like, because you could go like, oh, well, what was happening in here? Take away the 2 tubs of your parents. You could be like, oh, I was cleaning a dog?
Right.
You know, maybe I had a big thing I took into the shower to spray down because I didn't want to take it outside or whatever. But a hose indoors is weird.
Yeah.
But it can be completely innocuous. But it's one of those things where it's not one or the other right off the bat, so it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Well, I would
that
never
is to
think of
recall.
like, oh, I'll take the shower head off and put a hose
But you're
on
not
to
going to go
wash
into
the dog.
fucking backyard. Oh, yeah.
Like, I wouldn't think to do that. I would just wash the dog with the shower head on the thing. I would never take a shower
right,
head off.
but you have to open it up to all and sundry. You can say, I wouldn't do that, but. So you get it.
Yeah. All right.
You can't be like, well, I wouldn't do that, so fuck everybody else. No, yeah, you can. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not
wrong.
something I would do, so
It's
I wouldn't
weird.
say it's sinister or wholesome. But it's right there in the middle. You go, what's happening here? Like if you walk into someone's bedroom and they go, oh yeah, use my master bathroom because the other one's full, and you walk past like a weird piece of furniture and it feels like sex furniture, but you don't want to talk about it.
Clothing here, a bloody shower curtain down here, various items here in a bag, a trash can here, a knife, a K-bar Marine Corps knife here, and a bunch of evidence that was analyzed through the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation over here.
Not to scale. Yeah, you really needed that.
We saw the fingerprint, which was ultimately lifted and conclusively identified
Charmin
as
wet
that
white
belonged to
bag.
Joe Michael Guy Jr., the one on the left being the print from the scene, the one on the right being a standard. And they talked about, the experts, Mr. Finch and
Now look at the amount of gloves in this picture, and he's still have fucking fingerprints literally everywhere.
He didn't put them on his hands. He
I was
just
saying,
used them to pick things
He
up.
was so fucking lazy. That's the thing, is like, this was always destined to fail because the smartest, whatever, the people who consider themselves the smartest, because obviously he wrote a book about it and he figured he was going to totally get
He's
away
a
with it.
learned man.
It's like, yeah, when the rubber meets the road and like because work is hard. If you want something, you've got to put in effort. And if you've never put in effort to anything before, it's going to feel like a real slog. And I'm sure before, blood was spilled, that $500,000 seems sweet as hell. But the second, shit got real, it must have been like, oh my
the first
God.
swipe of that knife, he was probably like, fuck.
And then you're just like, driving, after the first strike, you get past that state of no return and you're amped, right? So he kills his father, and you can say, well, maybe he had, because there's a point. You say he killed his father, and you can say, well, he snapped in the heat of the moment, yada, yada, yada. It was too late, and blah, blah, blah. The saving grace would have been like he came to his senses and didn't also slaughter his mother.
Right, as she was carrying in groceries.
Because, everybody has a breaking point, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. You can be put under enough stress, whether it's warranted, whether it's real or not, that you snap. And if he was feeling the stress, even though nobody else was, it was 100% real to him and could have gotten him over that first hump. But what carried him past that second one? And then the final 12 nails in this coffin is like the disarticulation, the buying of the chemicals, the head on the stove.
Literally none of this is worth $500,000
No.
to me.
Not even
the characteristics that they look
And I'm
for
sorry, the
in peaks and
Charmin's
arches
wet
when
wipe bag
examining
is just
fingerprints
hitting
and
me.
how they ultimately-
It's so funny.
Well, I just mean like by the heat of the moment, Sarah, what I mean is like Joel could have been living in a fucking fantasy, right? Like writing down a little thing, be like, I'm going to kill my parents. Like maybe he's just an edgelord with a really intense diary, right? And, this could have gone where, he didn't kill his parents and he ended up burning it later in life or whatever, but we live in the reality we live in. I'm just saying like a lot of plans fall apart when you realize the scope. When the scope becomes real, more or less. And so when he picked up that knife and came at his dad, he was willing to keep going. Like, I mean, like the heat of the moment, be like, yeah, it's happening. But then you go, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah, and then I have to do it again.
Because you can go, whoa. And, we all have, or not we all, but there are varying degrees on this bubble of people that we all are. And would we all be like, well, at least he didn't kill his mom? No, we'd probably be like, he's still a monster. We'd be sitting in the same place we are now. Maybe he wouldn't be as famous. But yeah, the moral of the story is there are many times at which he could have been less of a monster. It's kind of like as if the Hulk, like Bruce Banner, turns into the Hulk and actually accidentally kills someone in rage. A single person, right? And he goes, oh my God. But instead of getting sad and turning back into Bruce Banner, he hulks out double time and kills 500 people. And then after those people are all dead, he goes, God damn it. And he hulks out another double time. And now he's 5 times as large as a fucking school bus and he murders the planet. And at each point you go, well, he could have. And yeah, but when you choose not to,
The
Here's
groceries
where we're
were
at.
for him.
Come to the
Pistachio ice
conclusion
cream,
that
for example,
a given
was for JR.
fingerprint,
Was for
provided by a
juniors.
given source.
But then again, like you say, well, what, the last thing they did was for him, right? What, a slap in the face and the icing on the cake. But when you think of like, okay, the track record is literally his mom coddled him his entire life. And that's why we got here. That pistachio ice cream kind of feels like a toxic influence. A little less coddling, a little less cutting of the checks and, covering, and God knows what they were doing for him aside from monetarily. Because fuck ups don't just fuck up in one arena.
Right.
So yeah, you can say, well, that pistachio ice cream is a heartwarming sentiment from a mother to a son, but in the long term, what it actually represents is more indulgence, more what's the word? Enabling. It's just more of the same. And again, I think I said this before, but he probably could have kept milking this just like Grant could have kept milking his mom and dad into infinity if he just fucking played it cool. But no, they're all stupid.
Yeah. Sarah said his parents were going to stop financially supporting him. He'd be broke. $500,000 goes a long way when they tell you that it's that or zero.
Right. But again, here's the thing. My personal gut feeling says just like Grant's mom probably would have kept giving him money and probably would have kept letting him see and interact with Sylvie every now and again. Lump Jr. here would have it would not have been the salad days of yore, but his mom would have definitely been squeaking him by with money and food and
under
shit.
the table.
Yeah. Because that's just the way it is. When you're an enabler, you don't just suddenly, like when the dad says, that's enough, because how many times has he said enough? How many times has Grant's dad said enough? Like Joel and Chad, the dads of these two asswipes, probably said, that's it a zillion times.
Yeah.
But if that's never it, it's never it. And then murder.
And this fingerprint in the same bathroom is just on the other side of the sink. The Clorox package, that being in the guest bedroom, in the closet area.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They were done in spirit, but I guarantee that mom would have anything that she didn't personally need to survive and that she could justify giving to Joel without Joel Sr. finding out would have made it to him.
Again, the print that was lifted, latent print that was lifted off that package. The left here being the print that was lifted, the right being the known standard of Joel Michael Guy Jr.'s print and how they were analyzed, and ultimately they concluded that Joel Michael...
Just look at the hilarious old school nature of the windows that they use for...
I can't.
Right middle finger,
can't handle
print
it.
from the glove box.
Good.
Nitrile gloves, ladies and gentlemen.
So many gloves and
The gloves that were
A whole
not only
box.
downstairs in the kitchen, but also in the guest bedroom and also in the guest bathroom. And again, the same process was utilized in collecting all these prints, and they were all...
Here's a counterpoint, Sarah. I bet, I don't know them personally, but dyed-in-the-wool enablers will do this. I guarantee that she would have gotten a part-time Walmart greeter job or whatever else and sent his ass the money. Enablers are enablers are enablers. Like you can say, fine, we're donezo. But if you're like, essentially his entire life has been a handout, there are it's like someone stopping heroin cold turkey. It's not only it's a behavior, but it's like comfort, because normality is something that we return to and the patterns of our lives repeat because we find comfort in doing them over and over again. And especially in this case, there are people who are willing to break their own backs and or necks to keep the status quo. It's the glue of okay, so like if your family is a book, there's one or two people in your family that are the glue. They are everybody that they're the people that everybody puts on a fake smile for, that gets along at holidays for. That was Joel Guy Jr.'s mom. She was the glue for all of these disparate people. And if you look into the case, it kind of is apparent because, the motherly figure is always this kind of like, I hold this family together and blah, blah, blah.
Like a matriarchal thing. Yeah.
And that's it. Is like when the glue holding this book together might be holding together Mein Kampf. Just because something is held together firmly doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Yeah, a lot of times, like you said, it's a mom or a grandmother. It can always
be whoever.
A grandparent.
Oftentimes it's a maternal feeling that I get from it. But it's just something that it's not only like for mother to son, but it's probably a generational thing. Especially being the baby of the family, they always, like, again, Grant Amato, the baby of the family, Joel Guy Jr. was the baby. A lot of these things happen, and whether or not we want it to happen, it just sort of does, because by the time you wake up and go, oh my God, I've been bankrolling a Bulgarian cam whore or a fat lump through his entire life or whatever the case may be, it's like nobody, if you see a kitten at your back door screaming in hunger, nobody's going to be like, no milk for you, slam the door, and then go to work.
Ultimately able to
And when that same cat is at your back door every night, and he gets bigger and lumpier, and you have to get more and more milk, then you got Joel Guy Jr.
determine that Joel
You're
might be
right,
back.
Sarah.
What?
What she would have done is irrelevant. What she told him is
totally,
what matters, and he wasn't willing to risk it. Yeah,
Yeah.
If he thought about it,
I'm just saying, in reality, that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
Him and Grant would have gone on not being murderers, but living a lifestyle substandard to what they had before. But all waveforms were collapsed because when idiots are faced with stress for the first time, literally ever, they snap sometimes.
right? Like the fact that, like, you're right. They were retiring, so in his head, They
He's
meant
too
it.
stupid to see that he could play the long con.
yeah,
And that's again where we are with Grant Amato or Chandler Halderson. All of these spoiled, snot-nosed little fucks go like, oh no, I'm going to have to actually put in some effort. And instead of realizing that probably won't actually have to happen,
yeah.
they fucking kill their families.
Jr. was the source of the fingerprints. The right index finger from the medical tape.
Who cares about fingerprints? Come on.
The book of premeditation here.
Boom! Book of Premeditation.
Look at that book.
Here we are.
Spiral bound.
It is fucking backpack.
We learned that
Is there a
major
pen in the
contributor
spiral?
Consistent with
Hell
Joe
yeah.
Guy Jr.
Yeah.
And we learned, she talked about, even broke it into quadrillions, about the number of being incorrect in the analysis. The knife from the master bedroom sink, where the stew-like remains.
Quickly here. This is something incidental. It's neither a factoid nor maybe even isn't interesting. But it just seems like all of the crimes of passion that involve knives are kitchen knives because by and large, they're easily accessible and, whatever. But the problem with them is most people's kitchen knife sets are low quality, so they suck. And you'll see things like blades breaking, knives going missing or bending or whatever. And so a lot of them have to be used. So it's more horrifying. Whereas like the people who bring knives with them often bring knives that are made for hunting or killing animals or skinning or whatever. So the disorganized killer will often use the block because it's there and it's in the heat of the moment. Whereas like your organized will bring something they know will do the job. Whereas here's Joel Guy Jr. in the middle, a fucking idiot. He made a plan and then aside from the K-bar, used a bunch of shit that was already there that was of poor. Look at this knife. It's fucking Farberware from Walmart. And he probably had to use 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah.
So like all that.
They were dull as shit.
If you plan the work the plan. When I was a photographer, had the same thing. Plan the shoot the plan. If things happen instantly that you have to like roll with it, then do it. But don't do the stupid thing that you shouldn't be doing because you planned something.
Johnny says, interesting point, because the house was literally filled with guns.
Yeah, good fucking point. But I can't even say but, because here's the thing. I would say but if your plan is to do a fire, knives, right? Soft tissue damage. And if you're an idiot and expect the fire to burn everything up, then you say, well, it's just bones. They died. But guns have bullets and bullets can hit ribs or brains or whatever and go through bone, even though knives do that too. You have to be incredibly skilled to like not nick
Yeah, right.
hard tissue. But yeah, like it's just like even after the fact with like zero interest and or intellect in this case or crime in general, you can go like, well, wouldn't you? And then the answer is yes. If your IQ is above 62, you would. Good point, Johnny.
Lisa Guy and Joel Guy Sr. were ultimately recovered in these tubs, ladies and gentlemen, before you.
I
The
guess.
fingernail clippings of Joel Guy Sr. We learned that there was
Those were found in the
presence of
bathroom, so we'll
buying
skip ahead of
things
that.
he was planning to use in the commission of these offenses 19 days beforehand. Another avenue of premeditation is, of course, the notebook.
For the
Okay.
record,
Go for it.
he 100% used the program Snagit because those arrows are exactly the same as my program.
For sure.
Anyway.
Also, but here's the thing too. If you're into true crime, especially like if you, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, but if you watch the Casual Criminalist, he's got a long list of things you shouldn't do. And one of them, it seems obvious to everybody, but criminals is don't write down your shit. But I would like to think there are varying degrees of that, right? Because if you are going to be this narcissist that needs to get something out, I think what Joel Guy Jr. did, although he fucking fumbled it like everything else he did in life, was the smarter of the two ways. Because you do a Twitchell, you write serial killer confessions, you delete it, and then, you rest easy and go, well, at least that's not there. Because it never dies. You'd have to go through and rewrite your whole hard drive a couple of times and scramble the data because they could re-pull that shit 6 waves from Sunday. But like a paper notebook, very susceptible to being burned. As are computers, but no one wants to burn a computer because they're expensive. A notebook is cheap as hell. It's like $1. And you say, this is a cherished memo, or a memento rather, a keepsake to me, a psychopath who committed murder, but it's cheap and the heat is on fire.
Yeah. And even looks like snippet tool is. Yeah.
We're talking about the backwards ass programs these people are
I
using.
can't handle
Knoxville.
this presentation. But yeah, even a computer. You can get a cheap computer. You fucking burn it.
No, but then here's the thing. The computer is so much... the thing with the computer is okay, well, maybe you say you deleted it, but whatever. Most writing software is cloud-based now. So even if you did say delete it and then burn your computer, Word maybe has a copy. Google maybe has a copy.
Yeah. Just burn your paper notebook. Yeah, and then that'd be
Or
gone.
just don't write it down.
Also
or
that.
if you... that's the thing. No, there's no... I am not a criminal advisor. I'm not a criminal life coach. But when you go through these things, you can't help but point out the obvious flaws.
At least you're right. At least he didn't write it in his notepad and his cell phone.
Right, because there are so many ways that data can be saved that are redundant.
Yeah.
But paper is paper.
He was going to do, you've seen the pages. What supplies he needed, what order he needed to do things.
He'd have to
What he was
destroy
gonna
the
do with
whole
the bodies
notebook, though.
after.
He'd
Yeah,
not just rip the
obviously.
pages out
No,
because
no.
you could still see the indents on the
You,
thing.
you throw the whole fucking thing in a fireplace or a fire barrel or literally anywhere where there's fire.
Get a composition notebook because then the spirals may not burn up.
Or even that, here's the thing. I'm not a criminal. I don't intend on writing down, nor do I intend on committing any crimes. But if I were the type of person to do that, just off the cuff, right? Let's say I live in an apartment and I did this and I had this notebook and I knew that I couldn't get to a fire or a furnace or whatever and the heat is closing in. Just a bucket of water, put the notebook in and let it sit for a couple of days. It's mush.
Well, if you don't have a lighter, they're $1.
No, but you're not gonna you have an apartment and you're gonna set a notebook on fire,
Right.
with smoke detectors in every room, and the heat is on. You are getting caught. You're a shitty criminal. I'm glad you're in jail. Even you're like, well, I would just buy a lighter and burn it in my apartment. What? Are you fucking kidding me?
Were deceased. What he was going to do with the residents after his plan was carried out.
He does. The neat shirt.
We know he purchased supplies in preparation. We saw multiple videos of him not only in Baton Rouge, but traveling up to 35 miles outside of Baton Rouge to purchase supplies.
Huh?
We heard that Dan Boudreaux Ace Hardware is roughly 35 miles from Baton Rouge proper. And he had to find a place that carried muriatic acid and food-grade hydrogen peroxide. sewer cleaner, number 2. Again, what's this about? This is about a motivation to collect money.
Another thing that people, I guess, just take for granted or whatever, because like it just felt like back in the old days, right? Poisoning was super easy because you can go down to a chemist or an alchemist or your grocer, and they had just pounds of toxic chemicals like arsenic, and you could just, buy shit wholesale and be like, yeah, I have rats. Can I get 7 pounds of arsenic? And even back then, they kept paper receipts, and most people were even too stupid to like not string out their purchases, right? Especially if you're going to write a book, you're going to call the book of premeditation. Premeditate something. If you're going to know that you are going to have 2 bodies, let's say 250 to 300 pounds of meat to get rid of, and you're going to premeditate it, buying 17 gallons of acidic or alkaline compounds that you're going to mix up into a goopy soup on the same day.
Yeah. Look,
Not great.
Yeah.
But they always do. Like, nobody goes and like, I'll buy a gallon at a time, because you can go to a pool store and buy muriatic acid and be like, yep, pool season again. And then like over the course of a summer, you can have lethal amounts of this shit. And the dude behind the counter at the Leslie's will be like, hey, there's the guy with the pool. And no one will know.
Because his parents had enough of supporting him. Had never worked a day in his life. And they wanted to retire, and they deserved to retire.
I just want to know what he thought would happen after college.
Right. What was he going to college for?
Like, what then? Like, because moot.
And we look at the supply purchases again. We'll start with supplies that were purchased the farthest out in terms of days from when the homicides occurred. 19 days beforehand.
Pathetic.
November the 7th of 2016.
People spend years planning crimes. Like, I have no hard data. I'm just saying, like, they're in an infinite universe where every type of person exists. There has to be a solid number of people planning things now, in the past, and will in the future, that will put a significant amount of energy and effort toward things, and that's why they won't get caught. But if you do something 19 days and then write a book about it and then keep that book on you ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, you say, oh, he would be in college for 10 years. He would have to shoot to be like a doctor or a lawyer. And I don't think he would have, because like you can bullshit your way through general courses, right? Like Joel Guy, lazy, he can put forth C grade effort as long as his parents are ponying up the dough. But a 10-year college career means he would have to knuckle down and start being something.
Not necessarily. I mean, she said he'd been in college for 10 years already.
Oh, he had?
He could have just did part-time, part credits in a dorm room with a dude.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like he could have been part-time, or
then
he
again,
could have failed
why?
2 of his courses at each time.
But okay, so fine. That would be a perfectly good like plan for like a local community college, but he was out of state. Like, so that just sort of backs up my statements earlier of like how deluded and enabling that family was. Like if I'm Joel Guy Jr. and I'm like, hey, I want to go to Louisiana for college to take part-time credits for 10 fucking years plus, or however many years it was, doesn't matter. If you're not going to go there full time to get a degree, and his mom's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally expensive. Like he was taking like a half a credit every semester. Yeah, and plus dorms and all the food and shit. Like
it's like it's not even a full step above Chandler Halderson, because like Chandler said he was going to college but was taking the money and fabricated stuff, whereas like Joel is even lazier. Like, he wasn't even putting up the artifice of anything. He's like, I'll go for a credit a semester as long as I can live on campus. And now, according to some reports, suck off my male roommate. Possibly. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'm hearing.
Purchased several supplies at 2 different locations. So
There he
again, if
is.
you look to the left,
Look at this
Mr.
guy.
Joe Michael Guy Jr.,
Who's that?
who Jerry Coleman, Task Force
Even if
officer,
you never met this potato, you would pick this guy out of a million people.
Federal Bureau of
So
Investigation,
my question is
was
here,
able to determine
when did
that
they
he was on
tell him
video
they were
on the
cutting
7th
him
of
off?
November.
Was it literally right before this Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Because that would have been when, I mean,
It was like the month before because they've been talking. Like, it was a long time coming. If memory serves, there had been this Joe Carpenter method. It had been this, that, or the other. And finally, it's like, okay, we're winding down. She had put in papers for retirement. He was trying, again, like they were selling the house. They were moving the next couple of days or
Right.
whatever. So that's why his ass got kicked into high gear and his plan of premeditation was so unpremeditated.
Right, this is the physical evidence that was seized at the crime scene. So we have Mr. Joel Michael Guy on the 7th purchasing muriatic acid.
Okay, I'm rethinking this. Maybe instead of Walmart making a murder aisle, maybe just have something in your computer, right? That says, in case of customer buying any combination of this 20 products
These things.
in 12 or greater, regardless of the amount of other things, because you can sneak them into like a big grocery order. Maybe we just, like, there's a little ding or
put
like
on
the
a radar.
yeah, something happens when we go, okay, just so we know, just like maybe it goes into a database in Walmart somewhere. So when the police show up and they go, okay, check your computer, how many murder kits were bought in the last 6 days?
It's like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, because then it won't necessarily tip off the less than absolutely stupid criminals, but it would get a ready-made list because it's always the same shit. If anyone buys more than 1 gallon of bleach, stop them and ask them what they're doing.
We further have Joel Michael Guy on the 7th purchasing what comes in these tied off bags because it's so
Tied off
because it's
bags.
Damn.
resistant to skin contact and it's
They tied off these bags.
Food grade hydrogen peroxide. If you see here,
I mean, my iron out came in a bag like that from Amazon.
so those are just the purchases in Gonzales, again, which is roughly 35 miles outside of Baton Rouge on the 7th.
Quick question of the typing score. If you know, what application is food grade hydrogen peroxide used? Is it just for cleaning or are they talking about using it in food?
I would hope not.
Probably
in
not.
food.
I would imagine
I don't
it's safe
think
to use around food for a cleaning
I think.
material.
But that's
It's like,
not
Jesus,
it, ladies and
food
gentlemen.
safe?
Same day. Joel Michael Guy then goes to Lowe's. He purchases an Irwin pipe wrench.
P.S. Also, I don't get, because here's the thing. In all of these big cases, there's always receipts just flying around. Like, I feel like every time a detective walks into a murder scene and it blows up on the news, they walk into just like a tumbleweed of murder receipts. Whereas I personally have never committed a murder, nor a violent crime, nor burglary, nor anything like that. And I've never gotten further from a store than the garbage can outside that receipt goes into. Am I alone in this? Are people saving receipts for something? I'm not a murderer. I have no ill will, but I don't see a need to keep a receipt. Even absent-mindedly, like if one accidentally makes it home, it's in the garbage right there and then out the next week. But these fucking morons seem to make like scrapbooks or put them in their wallets or like make a paper mache project out of it or like a piñata. It's like, here's my murder receipt piñata. I decided to keep them next to the book of premeditation. When outside of every Lowe's, every Target, every Home Depot, there are garbage cans that you can get rid of the evidence. And since those are emptied on the regs, mostly daily, you won't have this awkward situation where they find like a pile of receipts under your pillow. that basically add up to a murder.
Right. Joe says hydrogen peroxide is basically, it's a restaurant surface
Yeah, okay.
cleaner, highly concentrated, doesn't have a few ingredients.
Yeah, so it's like Star Sand, something that like will lose effectiveness once it's released to the air for a while.
And we see at the crime scene in the master bathroom that the shower head has been taken off.
He brought
That hose
Sharpies for
has been
some
applied
reason.
to assist in his process of disarticulating his parent.
Oh, God dang it. Get that out of the way. But okay, yeah. So you can see all of the crazy shit that's going on in this case, right? Like,
He did everything wrong.
literally everything.
Except for the handwriting in Notebook, but he still did that wrong by not getting rid of it.
In the circles of true crime, I feel like Chandler Halderson, at least in my perception, sort of reigns supreme as like the dummy kid family annihilator who's like too stupid to even be a human. But when you really look at it, there's not a whole lot that delineates one as stupider than the other. Like, sure, Chandler got caught by his girlfriend's parents disposing of a couple of torsos on their property, but Joel here got caught on multiple cameras at multiple stores buying multiple gallons of highly corrosive and suspicious chemicals. Who's stupider to you?
Right.
He's also purchasing Clorox wipes.
Premium.
Same wipes that contained his fingerprints. Same wipes that are found
You said Charmin on the
in
last one?
guest bedroom.
Is it Charmin or
11 Fort
Clorox?
Worth
Charmin doesn't make
Golden
wipes.
View Lane.
It was, he wrote
Well, let's
Charmin's
jump down
wet
the road
wipes.
closer to
You
when he
don't
commits these
know.
murders. He takes a break from
presentation
19.
He's using Windows 95. You gonna hold that against
Now we're at
him?
8 days. 8 days before the murders. He's thinking about it again. This is getting real.
Yeah, he took an 11-day break from thinking about the murders. Here at day 8,
It's real.
rolls right around
Am I
again.
going to do this? He goes to Home Depot.
There's my boy
Louisiana,
right there.
Same shirt.
11/18. And what's he buy at Home Depot?
Look at all these Sharpies. Why does he have so many? Oh, no, it's the same picture or a different angle. But, like,
Yeah.
why the Sharp? Why are we looking at this? They never made it even out of the package. Here are a pair of unused safety goggles and an unopened extension cord. Like, here are the things he planned on using in the murder. Show me something here. Dad's only
Home Depot
prosecutor.
brand extension cords, as well as a timer. And we saw what the timers were intended to do in his book of premeditation.
The
They were going
fire.
to be utilized to create a fire after the bodies had dissolved.
It's a gentleman's douche for your butt.
Makes another transaction at Home Depot. Just minutes.
Arm and
minutes
Hammer.
apart.
Doesn't he look just like a he looks like a garbage pail kid.
Yes.
Like a toddler fell in toxic waste in a cartoon, or like a really tall garbage pail kid where like him and Dodger have to like make some fancy clothes so Tangerine will get him to the thing or whatever.
He must have forgot the commercial bleach sprayer.
And again, not that this needs any belaboring, but all of these products went unused due to simple laziness. Unopened, 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 unopened. Money spent for a plan too lazy to come to fruition.
And as you see on the right, the crime
Hey,
scene
that is me, he's thinking to himself.
Oh, hey.
with the bleach and the bleach
Hey,
spray.
that's Joel Guy Jr.
Hey, come on over.
The very next day, he's still thinking about it.
Still.
Oh, my God.
7
before the murders.
days.
One
You've heard of the 12 days of Christmas, right? This is worse.
week before he's set to come into Knoxville to enjoy Thanksgiving with his family.
Oh, he's got a different
He's at
colored shirt on.
Academy Sports in Baton Rouge.
Look at his hair.
He is purchasing what you can see here, ladies and gentlemen. I submit to you is the K-bar weapon, the Marine Corps style knife that he used to murder his
Mom's
parents.
money spent, right?
And when you
You're seeing their downfall. It's like the fall of the House of Usher if it was funded by the Ushers. But so here's like the only place where like nothing, like there would be no red flags. Because if you walk into a Sportsman's Warehouse or a Bass Pro Shop or a whatever, I don't give a fuck. Cabela's, any hunting place, any dude who's walking out with a knife kind of looks like Joel Guy Jr. here. So this is probably the only place where a dude walking out with a 12-inch K-bar would be like, yep, there's another one.
Another day.
You know he's got a stack of Bud K catalogs at home, and one of the walls in his house is dedicated to samurai swords that are $20 or less.
Yeah.
consider that with the evidence on the crime scene.
Right? Like, yeah, you're right, Sarah. But again, it's like icing on a rotten cake that already is covered in icing. Every time you point out something that's like, that's what makes it worse too. It's like, throw it on the pile.
Yeah.
It's like a heap of burning books, right? And it's already so bad, but then you go, but then check this out. But meanwhile, the towering inferno behind you is like, yeah, every layer is just dripping with sardonic irony and just like malice.
Yeah, this prosecutor could have stopped building his presentations after like the 6th slide.
Like in ancient Egypt, the pharaohs would have paid for their own pyramid, their embalming or whatever. This is the modern day perversion of that, where these poor people basically paid for their own murder. Like King Tut was like, I'm planning on this. And Joel Guy Jr. was like, I'm planning on this.
So 2 days have passed. He's now 5 days
Oh my
before
God.
the murders.
Why not
Then
6?
4.
You skip 6. Did
And
he
what's
have
he
to
doing?
sleep for
Nothing
a day?
happened on the 6th day. He didn't go to Walmart. Here are the tubs.
He's at Walmart. You saw that video where he struggled to have the machine take his bill.
What?
It wouldn't take his money. It doesn't matter. But moral of the story is, if you watch enough of this stuff and you let yourself, because I don't always let myself, because sometimes my mind won't wander off into these weird areas if I'm, engaged in life fully as usual. But sometimes you'll walk through the parking lot of a Target or something, and you see someone putting a bunch of things together that, under the right circumstances, you go, I hope I
Questionable.
don't see this on the news later.
And what's he buying?
Tubs.
He's buying at least one of these. The proof is shown in the video show that he already had one. We saw him take the groceries.
Part of this too is like, you can see right here, there's a screenshot of him trying to get, like, him bumble fucking, like, he's so uncoordinated, like him trying to get these 2 plastic bins into his ars, like trying to watch a monkey fuck a football.
On the 6th day, Joel Michael Guy Jr. rested.
But on the 5th day,
He bought tubs.
Place one of those bins in there and
he bought a K-bar from Cabela's, and it was good to him.
put them both in. He bought his parents' tombs on the 21st.
Kind of a downgrade from a sarcophagus.
On to the next avenue of premeditation. I told you about the supply purchases, but also the book of premeditation.
The book. He wrote a fucking book. Here it is.
The same book that has his DNA.
Like, how disgusting. 20% fat, 20% protein, 50%. Like, yeah, all of this is easily accessible online or in science books or whatever, and also unnecessary, because what is the point of this information, right? Other than, because keep in mind, again, this book is just for Joel. It's just for him to remember and keep his brilliant plans straight.
It's like he was doing the Google research,
book
but then
that he
writing it all down while he was doing it. Like, how?
Oh,
what-
God, you're right. This reeks of my first book report.
Yeah.
It's like mostly just plagiarized shit that, again, I'm old, predated the internet that I found in books. But yeah, this is just like Wikipedia of various murder types.
Well, and
with a splash of Joel Guy Jr. family flavor here or there.
Right. He's looking at what components make our body what they are, and then how can I make it so that they decompose fast.
Regardless, he does not need that information in this book. He would need what chemicals and how much. He does not need a working formula of body fat plus time plus muscle plus this plus that. You would say, I need X, Y, and Z. You wouldn't go, this is a math problem. And since I'm good at math, because I've been in college for a decade, let's write down the components of the... No! This guy's a fucking idiot.
That he will go
Unnecessary.
Back to VR,
Modern problems
so his
require
mom's
modern
phone can be
solutions.
A program to set a text so she could be, in quote, alive. And what does this book do when you put it with the crime scene?
Well, it
Essentially,
displays the
writings,
crime
what they do is
and the
they
motivation.
corroborate everything that's on the crime scene. So everything he set out to do, he did.
100%.
Get rid of the bodies inside of the house.
Check.
Real quick. If, just bear with me on this. Can you see this as an album cover from 1992 for Alanis Morissette?
Yes.
Well, the proof is shown that he did that, ladies and gentlemen, or at least attempted
I
to.
bet he bought the Sharpies to check off his book.
Nah, it must have been.
Get carving knives to make small pieces.
Look, in his plan, he says, he bought the big knife, get carving knives. That all went by the wayside because he just used the Farberware that's in the kitchen.
Get knives because they're quiet.
I'll go
multiple.
get. And not for nothing, this needs to be again, whoa, he's not smart, but KNIF, damn it, V. E-S, for quick. QUI.
Quiet.
Oh, that's
quiet.
That was quick. But again, fuck it.
Again, we found at least.
Also, Mives?
Mives.
Mives? I'm sorry, you can't see that because my face is in the way, but it says Mives.
Kmives.
KMIVES.
Scattered around the upstairs of 11.
And I'm here
434
to
Golden View Lane here in
remind
Knox
you.
County.
Quick.
Yeah, it's definitely a Nickelback album cover.
Oh,
Five
no, that
knives
was
that
like
were used
2000s.
In the commission of these brutal murders.
I'm thinking more like Gin Blossoms, Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah.
Get plastic sheeting for the disposal process. We saw the plastic sheeting in
And there's the
master
hose.
bathroom.
Isn't that sinister looking?
Investigator
Yeah,
McCord
no.
encountered that plastic sheeting when he made that awful discovery.
I'm sorry. If I saw anybody that
The
had their
remains of the
shower
plastic
head
sheeting
off
being
with a
on the guest
hose on
bed
it,
that was neatly made.
Well, I mean, nobody saw this except for the officers, but just the fact that you're looking at it.
Get bleach denature proteins. Get plastic bin for denaturation process.
When, again, I have to keep saying again because it's just we keep hitting these same walls. But this is just for you, Joel, ostensibly. Get bleach. End of line. Get plastic bin. End of line. Plausible deniability is a fine line. Now, keep in mind, he called it his book premeditation, yada, yada, yada. But if he hadn't called it yet, and maybe it was just a shopping list and a bunch of numbers, it would have at least been plausibly deniable. But when you use words like denature,
Ladies and gentlemen, he had the supplies.
the shower head removed with a hose attached.
By the
Gay.
Marietta gas station.
yeah,
93
Turn
degrees.
heat up to 90 to melt fingerprints and dry everything.
melt fingerprints.
Mm,
Just an AC unit, Joel. Heat pump, baby. Not going to be melting much in that.
no.
Now, we saw a lot of crime scene pictures in this case from different crime scene
P.S. We've already seen how many fingerprints he left behind, so
All of them.
golf clap.
technicians. We also saw video.
It would be funny. of course, like this would be like in the white, like a whitest kids you know type sketch where like as he does this, like as the slide's about to change, like a little asterisk pops up and it's like 163 fingerprints were found throughout the residence.
So upon initial entry,
They don't know how to do
if you
that.
recall, the heat upstairs was at 95 degrees.
Ding, like a
And
cinema sense.
after initial entry, it starts to cool down a bit. It goes to 93. It goes to 90. We heard about everybody
Still
who
hot.
went in that crime scene. The medical examiner, Investigator McCord, the initial responding officers.
It was hot.
We heard from
We were
Officer
sweating.
Bap about his reaction to that heat on his face.
It was like
The smell
summer.
of chemicals.
It's hot. That's what I'm getting at. Sorry, I move on.
Turn heater up as high as it goes to speed decomposition. Okay, well, we know what he wants to decompose.
Do we?
The disarticulated, the brutalized bodies of his
Right, the
parents
proteins
that
he
are
was
in an
denatured.
Yeah.
acidic-based fluid in the master bathroom. We also see a fan and heater that we heard
It's right there.
on the crime scene video was actively working when officers initially entered.
A box and a half of gloves.
Just like, because when you know, everybody like, oh, it's an oxymoron, right? We go, ha ha ha. It's like a jumbo shrimp. It's so funny. But then when we see like a real hypocritical IRL example of this, you go, what the fuck? Because if I were shown these pictures of this crime scene and this amount of gloves turned inside out and obviously used next to a half-used bottle of alcohol, you'd go like, whoa. I would wager, based on the evidence here and the sheer amount of latex gloves used in this image, that no fingerprints were found at the scene when it could not be farther from the truth. It's almost as if like you called a pizza place, said everything but pepperoni. Seriously, I'm allergic to pepperoni. And then when they get there, you open up the box and it's not a pizza, but a stick of uncut pepperoni.
We find in the guest bedroom, we find a bag with Hanes socks. What do we find strewn throughout the residence at 11434 Golden View Lane?
I almost forgot about this because he does say use gloves. You can see part of it here. Use gloves and socks to prevent fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not everybody is like me and has this base of experience, but I work in a medical field and have access to rubber gloves. So maybe I'm a little too familiar with how they work. But the reason why we keep rubber gloves in medical facilities as opposed to socks is because gloves do things that socks can't. So why you would bring both is confusing. Because he puts the socks... okay, so he wears the socks on his feet too, yada, yada, yada.
So not have to have his shoe prints.
Yeah, but a lot of people will use socks on their hands too. Like if you can't afford a pair of latex gloves, which...
I feel like are probably cheaper than socks.
like go to a free clinic, say you have a cough. Like if you're like the cheapest murderer in the world, right? Go to the free clinic, say you have a cough. When they take your temperature and they say, I'll be right back, see you in 15, and it's actually more like 45. Snitch!
Ta-da.
So yeah, I misconstrued that he put the socks on his hands because I think at some point it feels like he did do that. But again, it doesn't matter. His fingerprints were everywhere.
Right.
And it would be different, right? Because we could just as easily say, well, if you use the gloves on the stuff that he used in the perpetration of the murder, but they found his fingerprints everywhere else that was innocuous, great. But that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So what did these gloves touch? When they were on his hands, what was he doing?
He was opening the bottles of alcohol and then taking the gloves off.
Yeah, perfect. Hands are starting to sweat. Oh, and P.S. Like if you're walking through fluids, socks will still leave prints. I mean, that needs to be said, but like the amount of blood and shit everywhere, like I was watching a Forensic Files where they found a thumbprint on a bed sheet, for Christ's sake. So
Yeah.
forget about it.
We've seen the proof is corroborated that Joel Michael Guy Jr., after he killed his parents, based on their clothing.
What do you think this says?
Incisions in the clothing. He then decided
Put her
that
in
he
shower.
planned that he was going to remove their clothes and take them away.
With dog?
And he did that by the use of scissors that were located ultimately right next to the pile of blood where he executed his mother. And how's he going to go about disarticulating his parents? At least for his mother. Turn on the hot water and point her to get rid of forensics. Remove her clothes and take them with me for disposal.
Being a lawyer for this case must have been mind-numbing.
Which side, Tony? Because I would see the prosecutor being like, this is a layup, but the defense, yeah, totally being like, oh, fuck. But like, maybe it's Brooks, Darrell Brooks or Daryl Brooks. In that case, like, it would be the prosecution that would be having the problem. But like, as a prosecutor, this gets slapped on your desk. You go, oh, fuck, I can go home early. Maybe it was mind-numbing because it was so boring because it was easy.
You got to put together this presentation.
I'll take your answer. Oh, yeah. But all of the cases like that, there's so many, like the sheer number of things that people have to look at for, what do you call it? For thoroughness or for, because they have to, if they're doing it right, they have to cross every T and dot every I.
Mm-hmm.
So every case would be bone crushing. It just feels like this one would be like, well, at least it's all evidence, right? Like I'm sure in most cases you fact check shit and you're like, 1 out of every 100 pieces of things you go and verify or check out or yada, yada comes up as something. Whereas this must have been like going out into the hills of California to dig for gold, sinking your shovel into a mountain of nothing but gold and throwing gold over your shoulder with every, because like what was left to the imagination in this case? Right?
Tony was like, either both. I'd have made him admit it. Just get sentenced. Alfred plea, no contest.
Right, but
Anything?
those are the ones he probably didn't admit to anything. I've never seen the interrogation footage. He wanted to drag this out. The perps aren't going to act the way you want them to act.
Yeah.
But if you're lucky, you'll get something like this where literally all you have to do is sleepwalk your way through the book that they wrote about the murder they committed.
Get a sledgehammer to crush bones. And if you look below the crime scene in the master bedroom floor,
There's the one
with
right
a bunch
there.
of other various items that he brought with him through his shopping, is a sledgehammer.
No contest. Alfred played. That's a
Also know
funny
there
one
was
too.
a blender in the master
Oh, there's the
bedroom
yeah.
floor.
So there's the
Base
blender and there's the meat grinder and the
portion
gas
of
in
the blender
his
that holds in the content.
trunk.
We know that when he was arrested in Louisiana, that in his trunk, not only was there a gas can that exactly matched the other 3 at the residence, but there was a commercial meat grinder.
Not that this needs to be thought about too, but his parents are both stewing away in tubs, turning into liquid as this is being discovered. What was the meat grinder for, do you think? Was it an early part of the plan that he decided to say fuck it because he had the bins? What else was left? The head was on the stove, cooking away. The bodies were in the tubs. The only things that were left untouched were like the hands of his dad. I get the gas can. It was part of the plan. The meat grinder. Do you think he just coincidentally thought about making deer sausage later?
Did what he wanted to do.
Maybe he wanted to feed it to the dog.
But they were soup.
Well, yeah, right. I'm saying like his first idea, like you said.
Place hair curler with flammable paper and flammable containers of gasoline in 4 locations. So that tells us that Joel Michael Guy Jr. brought 4 gas cans. And if you recall, ladies and gentlemen, and bring one up to enter it into evidence, it's full. They're full of gas.
As a matter of fact, in this courtroom, I have 5 gallons of volatile gas in this. It's evidence. Put that up that match or whatever.
And looking into that entry deeper, place hair curler with flammable paper and flammable containers. We have a hair curler plugged in. We have a hair dryer plugged in. Both next to heaters.
Okay, not that this is a surprise, but rookie mistake also, because most arson investigators are, number one, going to look and or test for the presence of accelerants, and 2, if there is more than one ignition source, that's an automatic red flag. Like, you could see he set up multiple areas in which this thing could take flight, but not that fire comes up a lot in the cases that I watch, but when it does, it's always a red flag because, again, the aforementioned bullet holes that go through the bones and or multiple ignition sources and or like pore patterns or whatever. Like, to the layman, fire seems like, yes, it's this big primal thing that envelops everything that it touches. And to a certain extent, yes. But since to burn an entire house would take an incredibly long amount of time, and nobody living next to a house on fire is going to sit there and let it happen, the firefighters are going to show up, and or at least someone with a hose from across the street is going to start doing shit. And so it's very difficult for a house to be rendered, powder. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, it's always like the ripcord to every murder is like, well, at least there's always fire.
He wasn't done, ladies and gentlemen. He was not done. He left because his plan was disrupted when Joel Guy Sr.
Here's the thing about, since it's coming up a lot now, the typing square. The Alfred plea, I think, is an interesting legal maneuver. I would like to know the story behind Alfred, much like Miranda's. But, it kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure I like it because it's just like one of those, you can have your cake and eat it too. For the utterly, utterly delusional, like Sherry Papini would have taken an Alfred plea, I'm sure. But if you say, okay, well, there's definitely enough here to convict me as guilty. I swear I'm innocent, but I recognize there's way more than enough to convict me. Like, the fact that exists, I appreciate it because there's probably someone who it benefits, but it just feels like in my gut, who is that helping? People get convicted wrongly all the time. This just feels like a faster way for that to happen.
Yeah.
Because if someone, but then again, all people are different and you don't know how people are going to react. So someone beaten down by the system, by life, by whatever, could just see that as the easiest way out. Because, a lot of times people will take pleas, even if they're innocent, take death penalty off. But as often as that happens, I don't know. The death penalty seems like scarier than it actually is. But that's just me. I don't know.
Attempted to fight for his life.
Right. They're not offering that necessarily.
Timer for flammables set for Friday at 10 a.m. Talks about how sunlight can mask fire, but not smoke. And the fact that everyone will be at work, they won't be able to report it. And we find on the scene, ladies and gentlemen, as well as we see in the video from Home Depot, he's buying a heavy-duty timer. Get rid of the blood in the crime scene. He knows there's going to be blood. He plans to attack his parents with knives. He knows there's going to be blood. Use peroxide and bleach. The peroxide has the ability to work against hemoglobin, a component of human blood, And the bleach has the ability
This
to diminish
confirms the
presence
fact
of
that
DNA.
he is just making his research
What do we
bullet
find?
points on paper, just like,
No, yeah, he's basically looking at Wikipedia,
yeah.
and then jotting some shit down.
It's like he's taking a science class.
Yeah, it's like if it's not even human. It's as if, this example or this trope has come up a lot, but like an alien from another planet comes down, is locked in a room watching thrillers like CSI type movie dramas and stuff for a week without any context of our language, and then is somehow forced into crafting a plan of murder. This is what it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of you and part of me wants to go like, oh, well, because he's using words like hemoglobin, right? In reference to the peroxide and the bleach with the DNA and the hemoglobin. You go, well, there's thought that like there are different components and like there's thought being put in superficially. But when you think about it, there's blood all over the place and you're burning down the house.
Right.
So maybe I was wrong. These do seem to be redundancies, but they're treated as if they are the end all and be all. Because he's saying, okay, we'll crush the bones, denature proteins, the hemoglobin, the DNA, the peroxide, the bleach. If it were done correctly now, yeah, it does seem like overkill because it does, if handled correctly, it does have multiple redundancies.
Mm-hmm.
It just slips my mind because none of them were enacted. There was no fire. Most of these chemicals stayed in the bag. So maybe there's nothing wrong with the plan. It's just the idiot executing it.
On the scene.
Yeah.
Hydrogen peroxide, bleach, plenty of bleach.
Yeah, you're right, Sarah, because in death penalty cases, if the death penalty is levied, an appeal is lodged automatically. So yeah, it does seem, I don't know, the death penalty is more and more feeling like the appendix, where it's still there, and some people are desperately and confusedly attached to it for some reason, but it's not really used, and if it is used, it's confusing, and at any sign of trouble, we yank it. So,
Bleach reacts with luminol, just like blood. Douse the area with bleach. And how does he plan to do that? With this commercial bleach sprayer that we watched him purchase from Home Depot.
I can't believe those
18th of
exist.
November 2016.
And again, you're burning
Days
down the
before
house.
He carried out these homicides.
Cross all his T's that he didn't cross.
And what does he do after this?
Because, like, again, it does feel like that the plan is here, the ingredients are here. It's just the chef never showed up to cook the dinner.
Yeah, it was like
He made
day
the
6,
recipe,
he rested,
bought the ingredients, slaughtered the livestock, and then left the kitchen
yeah.
forever?
Day 0 and -1, he rested.
Bleach by itself isn't going to work. What do we need? What we learned from investigator Wassman. A search was conducted on the artifacts
Wow.
of the home computer on the 27th. We submit to you that the proof is shown that Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy were brutally murdered on the 26th. Leaves Joel Guy in the residence on the 27th. We know he leaves the late hours of the 27th into the 28th. There's a search on the 27th at 8:05 a.m. looking for sodium percarbonate, and the investigator told us that that is OxyClean. So, with regard to first-degree
Real quick, sodium is such a fantastic element. It is used in so many places. You can see it here in OxyClean. It's table salt. It's a metal. It reacts violently to water. What can it do, right? Sodium.
premeditated murder.
It's a metal.
We've showed you,
Tastes
ladies
good
and
on
gentlemen,
chips.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, the identity of the killer, Joel Michael Guy Jr. We have showed you that he acted with premeditation, and we must also establish that he intentionally killed Lisa Guy, his mother, and Joel Guy Sr., his father. So with regard to Joel Guy Sr., we know that he was executed in the exercise room with apparent signs of struggle. Not only is the exercise machine overturned, but there's a futon present inside that
It's like
room
a
that
solved
has
game
been
of
stabbed.
Clue. He was
The
found in
blood
the exercise
patterns
room
on
with a knife.
walls. We heard proof about how they had smears in them.
Ugh.
There's clearly a struggle in this room. Again, going down the hallway, where Investigator McCord and Ballard were able to see the severed hands in a praying-like position of Joel Guy Sr. So how do we get to that Joel Guy Jr. acted intentionally?
We have to set something up because if you're an authority, Sarah,
Yeah.
let's talk true crime.
What points us there? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we heard from the medical examiner yesterday, and she talked about that she was able to identify at least.
Just because you may, or you probably do, or rather, the gravity of the situation probably escapes you and I and everybody involved in this as we speak, because we're seeing the presentation interspersed with cuts of Lumpy here. But imagine being in the same room with this person, probably being able to smell whatever he's wearing, close enough to like reach out and touch this fool. And as you're going through these heartrending details and pictures, like we saw his father's disarticulated hands on the screen earlier. And then we cut to this fucking lumpy idiot with his eyes big as life, reacting zero. Like, I can only speculate what I would feel in that moment, but it would probably just be numb. Because how can you, right? What can you feel in that situation? It's like you're not connected to the family, so it's not necessarily going to be anger or rage, but it's going to be like confoundment and confusion and just like,
He were, he stick.
dang. Oh my, seriously. That is we'll have to talk. Let's get in contact after this because I've got questions.
42 stab wounds. And
Like, if you are familiar with this channel, or even if you're not, I'll fill you in. He feels like if he had just found like YouTube, he could have just been a lol cow, but instead he became a horror cow. Like he could have, if he had gotten online and displayed his inadequacies, he probably could have been floated by pay pigs for eternity, like all the other lol cows out there who make a living that way. But for the grace of God, there go you and I, because any idea is better than the one Joel had.
there may be more
Cut his hair
presence,
the
but
week before the trial. It was gross and shoulder length prior to.
Yes, holy fuck. If you're out there and you're not these people who are vastly more connected than I or anybody else, yeah, he had this gross long hair. Like, did they ever tell you about like what was up with the lump on the side of his head when they were booking him? I'd like to know what the fuck was up with that.
based on the condition of Mr. Guy and the fact that his skin on his front side had essentially dissolved, and he was down to muscle, and portions of his skull had dissolved, she was still able to identify at least 42 stab wounds.
That's the other thing that like when you something overlooked is like all the information presented here had to be collected by a living, breathing, thinking human being. And part of this trial entails the coroner and how she had to go through these tubs of soup that were once humans and try to delineate what was and wasn't trauma and all this stuff. And Jesus Christ, we've all been in that situation where maybe you're not a puzzle person, but someone comes over, a friend, and dumps a 10,000 piece puzzle thing out of a bag and goes, voila. And you know, the next couple of whatever months, weeks, you're going to be throwing time at this thing to try and put it together. And that's a human being. No, I take that back. 2 human beings. This person had to put back together 2 human beings from liquid and just chunks and recreate them not only as a person, but how they were eviscerated, because most of this stuff, again, gets lost to just the acid.
And again, when you connect that with the legal definition of acting intentionally, a person acts intentionally when it's their conscious, objective, or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you at least 42 stab wounds is acting intentionally.
Yeah, I would say so.
Again, we see that blood. We see signs of a struggle. We know that in the struggle, Joel Guy Sr.
Another thing I think the average person doesn't maybe ever come to grips with or terms with or anything, but like if you ever had a glass of something, right, like maybe it's between 6 and 14 ounces or whatever, and you drop that and it just goes poosh, and you go, oh my God, there's glass and orange juice everywhere, and that was just 12 ounces. Like, the type of horrifying individual that can go at another person with a knife, like the human body has so much liquid in it. And no one thinks about that, apparently. Or if they do, they don't give a shit enough to like, just like, oh my God, just, I'm not one. Let me put it this way. I look at everything I do in terms of mess before I start to do it. Like, is this something that I'm going to have the energy to clean up later? Because when I'm enthusiastic about something, maybe doing a homebrew or another painting project or whatever craft around the house, I go, okay, I've got the enthusiasm and the energy to start and finish the project, but am I going to give a fuck enough that after it's all done and it looks like a murder scene, in all intents and purposes, because there's going to be shit strewn everywhere, am I going to care enough to clean up?
Right.
A lot of shit doesn't get done because of that, people. Tubes. Tubes.
Sustained several injuries to himself, either by trying to repel an assault or by physically grabbing the blade, knowing that he will be cut to stop an assault.
It's just like, again, think about that. Think of the person closest to you now, relation-wise, in your family via marriage or blood. And imagine them snapping and coming at you, and how much of that you would take before you go like, what? This has obviously gone too far. And then forget about all that, because then when it happens in real life, you don't have the opportunity of a thought experiment.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
What does the machine tell us? Points to a struggle. What does the couch or futon tell us? There was a struggle. But most damning, what does Joel Guy Jr. tell us when he goes to Walmart?
His hands are
He
fucked
tells
up.
us
Look at
there
that.
was a struggle.
Yeah. Joel Guy Jr., in every piece of footage we've seen him in, just seems like the dude who's even too lazy for fucking socks. Like the act of going to a drawer and finding something to pull on over his face, aside from covering up his footprints for a murder, just seemed like too much effort for our boy.
Right.
Like he's wearing moccasins. Those look like he's wearing no socks, right? Anything he can slide
No,
his fat
every
ass
Ladies and
into.
gentlemen, you have this video
Yeah,
for
no,
consideration.
he's
It's
wearing
in evidence.
flip-flops or those
I would
shoes.
ask you to
It's like a pair of LL Bean fuzzy slippers. He's just fucking rolling around town in those.
look at his left hand and his inability essentially to use it.
And his right hand's fucked up too. Hello. Call attention to the left hand, but the right one is like
bandage.
bandaged from here to
Right.
fucking doomsday.
Same medical supplies that are ultimately found in the guest bathroom, upstairs level of 11434 Golden View Lane.
And just like the innocent banality of this balloon that probably brought sheer delight to any number of children being pushed in a cart past it. And then this miserable scum fuck has to be like, well, murdered my parents and I got my hands boo-boos.
There's so much of a struggle that Mr. Guy
Toddler.
could not pull his wallet out.
Oh, Jesus.
You see his hands? It's evident.
Yes,
Shows
we
the
see his
struggle.
hands. Here's my money.
He's probably thinking like, fucking genius. I'm using cash and they can't track me. Oh no, my bald spot's in 4K. Just kidding. It's probably like 720p.
Yeah. It's Walmart.
Also, if you've ever worked retail, POS, you'll know stands for point of service or point of sales. I always just, because I hated working retail, it was always just piece of shit. Piece of shit self-checkout, piece of shit regular checkout, piece of shit garden. Yep, there's me. My bloody hands from my murdered parents.
3 years ago.
Again, with regard to Joe Guy Sr.'s hands, ladies and gentlemen, again, we heard proof yesterday.
Spoiler alert, and obviously if you're in this far, it's horrifying. These are the hands that the dude found while coming around the corner to be like,
From Dr. Hawes, who established that these are defensive wounds in nature and that they were either obtained trying to repel an assault or grabbing a blade to stop an assault. But further, what did we learn? We learned that when Joe Guy Jr. was arrested in Louisiana, what the video didn't show us is the actual wounds. We got to look at them.
Just look at this boy. Look at this fucking corpse worm, casket grub looking motherfucker.
He's standing so strange.
And it's so sad because you know that his mom was just like, his only supporter probably in genuineness. And God knows what she saw, because we look at him and we go, what the fuck? But, the baby of the family, they get cut corners and they end up being like this. Just this like crooked, lumpy, sad, like worthless dude. And it's hard to point to one place and be like, this is where it failed. Because you can go, Joel is where the buck stops because he's the monster. But he wasn't raised in a vacuum, right? He was cultivated in a garden that allowed him to exist. So it's hard to look at the one, physically hazardous fixture of this garden and say that it's the only problem when everywhere else is like a toxic leak or this is a problem. Like, he did not spring from nowhere, and it's horrible to speak ill of the dead. But in these situations where like you basically cultivate your own demise, like Shanann Watts, she did not do anything to deserve that. So she's like, I'm just talking about when it comes to kids doing this to their folks. Like by and large, it just feels like red flags were ignored, signs were ignored, help was not offered, corners were cut, accountability was not made. And so when you make your bed, like here's the thing. I said this before I had a kid. Now that I have a kid, I have to double down. If I'm ever murdered by my kid because I did a shitty job, like if someone wants to defame me after I'm murdered, I have to like be okay with that, even though I have to because I'm dead. But that's just it. Like it was an ecosystem that sprung forth this mushroom that happened to be toxic. It's just easier to be like, yeah, he's the bad guy, and literally everybody else around him did no wrong. But how did he happen then, right?
Yeah.
We got to see how serious these wounds were. You saw the instruments of death that were used to murder Joe Guy Sr.?
Yeah, true. But not to this extent. Again, yeah, you're right, because not, like in every true crime case, you can't say that everybody who does X will turn out Y. But when we look at these cases, there seems to be a theme where we can definitively say that the predominant number of people who have done this sort of thing in Chandler Holdison, Grant Amato, Joel Guy Jr., any number of these kids who go wacko and kill their family, it's always like one of two things, like I said before. It's either like the horrifying physical, emotional, or sexual abuse they receive and they snap, or it's something like this where, sure, a lot of people are spoiled rotten and don't kill anybody, but some do. I'll throw another one on the pile. Dylan Millard of Millard Air up in Canada. He killed his father for the same bullshit. Like, he was a spoiled piece of shit who got enabled his entire life. And Tim Bosma had to pay with his life. In addition to killing his own father, he killed that poor guy. Oh, it's so sad.
Used to stab him at least 42 times. Well, yeah, I think that's what we've got, right? Because he was enabled up until the point where they said no more. Joel Guy Jr. snapped. Grant Amato enabled up until they literally couldn't, like, there was no more money.
Yeah,
even if they wanted to, they couldn't support him anymore. He snapped. Gonzo. Dylan Millard. I don't remember why he killed his father. It was definitely for money, and it was because he was doing a bunch of bullshit. Gonzo. And to a lesser extent, like the Alex Murdaugh case, like his son, before he offed him, like was doing that same thing. That boating accident he was in, everybody was cutting them slack. So yeah, it has the potential to, when you're enabled to such an extent where nothing sticks, eventually you're going to think that, yeah, nothing sticks. And not everybody will. Some people will snap for literally no reason. You don't know. Like that one guy who was the Chad something or other. He was the chiropractor, and he just went crazy. And they're like, "Why'd you do it?" And he's like, just a sad, dopey looking Muppet, dude.
Used to create a gaping wound on the left side of his body.
Yeah, that's the thing with true crime, is like there's no hard and fast anything anywhere. It just is indicative, not indicative. It just feels correlative of a problem, because when you've got doors open that you never have to work for, like let's say Prince Andrew, and you hang out with another scumbag, let's say a man who maybe committed suicide in his jail cell, if there's never a no, the yeses keep escalating.
Used to disarticulate him at the shoulders, at the hips.
I wouldn't say it would encourage murder, no, but what encourages murder? To you or me, like nothing could encourage us to murder someone, but I mean, open up any crime book anywhere, watch an episode of CSI, or not CSI, but Forensic Files or Cold Case Files. It happens every day. But I'm just, there are things that we see that are obviously not good. And
at the hands.
Joe did it all.
What was Joel's plan? Joe Guy Jr. Kill him with the knife. He did, ladies and gentlemen. Consider the torso. What's left of the remains of Joe Guy Sr. Again, previous to this, had been dissolving, essentially, in acidic fluid.
Just real quick, put yourself in this situation. You're in court. You're sitting where Joel Guy Jr. is. There's a picture of your dad's corpse. Here's your reaction. Independent of the circumstances to a degree, but again, we don't grow up in a vacuum. if you're taught that you can do no wrong, then that's a lesson that you can take in a very extreme way. Since most of us don't, we get to say, yeah, good. And that's right. Most of us don't. But that's just it. Most of us don't, and some of us do. There's no way of telling who or when. I mean, there is, but no one wants to look.
Saw some illustrations where the medical examiner was able to kind of explain the disarticulation of Joel Guy Sr. and where it happened, and also use this as a way to explain how those chemicals reacted with his skin and what they did to his body when he was face down in one of these tubs. She explained that his skin dissolved, again, that he was sectioned off of the joint. She explained that he had stab wounds.
Okay, so you're saying that murders occur based on what's within the murder in poverty and rage or retaliation, yada, yada. And I agree, but I also disagree in part because, yes, here's the thing. Life is exceedingly complex. So to say that one thing has sway over the others predominantly is hard to say. Because since we are raised, again, not in a vacuum, we're in an ecosystem where we're allowed and we're taught certain things. And most of us go along, the path that doesn't involve murder. And let's say, as an example, the shootings, what are they called? We had two big things happen here in Arizona: the baseline rapist and the I-10 shooters or whatever. Dale Hausner and Jeff, what's his nuts? And I would say, yeah, their tie to their victims was essentially nothing. They were just meth heads who led shitty lives and made poor decisions and shot out their window at people to get their rocks off because for this, that, and the other. But it was how they came up that warped them into these monsters that let them shoot these people, and to which they had no discernible connection. However, with Joel, he attacked the very people who had gave him support because they had threatened to take it away. So I would say that is deeply ingrained, because like when Dale Hausner aimed his 410 shotgun out of his car to shoot a lady walking her dog in Phoenix, dude was a meth head. And, there's a million different ways you can spin that off, but you can definitely say that victim and that man who had no relation, that was nothing. But like the Hallersons, the Amatos, they crafted their own situation. And I'm, again, that with the best of intentions, yes, because every parent has the best intentions, but you don't know, like your intentions may be good, but you don't know the outcome of your actions until, once you plant the seed, you don't know until there's fruit on the tree, basically. So each case is going to be wildly different.
Yeah.
It's just in this one, it just does seem like he grew up in a fishbowl that let him be everything that a human societally is expected not to be. And he snapped. But he was allowed to. He was able to put no effort in. Like with Chandler Hallerson, he had to put in effort to lie. Grant Amato had to put in effort to lie. It just seems like Joel Guy here, didn't even have to put up the effort to pretend like he had effort. Like there were no lies. Chandler Hallerson wasn't allowed to go to college for 10 years. They expected a degree out of him. And when Bart found out that it wasn't going to happen, it was like, what? We expected. I don't think Joel ever had any expectations. They were probably just like, oh, well, time to sink or swim. This eagle's got to go out of this nest. And before he went, he took out the parents and they hit the ground below.
6 inches deep. Injuries of his lungs, liver, kidneys.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. We don't. I can't speculate on what others would have done. It's impossible to say what anyone would do. Slot it out for Joel Guy. I'm just saying we get to collapse all waveforms here. That's the good thing about these cases in particular, and that's why I don't like mysteries. Is by and large, unless it's grossly mishandled and overturned with DNA and yada yada later, most of the stuff that makes it big is like big for a reason. We get to slam a jam of this because it's a slam dunk case and we get to feel good about the legal system. So I'm not postulating like what would have happened if Joel Guy were actually named Chad and lived in Phoenix, but moot. This has already been written into the annals of history. You know what I mean?
We got to see his clothes.
Exactly.
Right.
The effort to put into like murder, Chad, Grant, Dylan, Joel, instead of just being like, oh man, what if I just put in a little effort every day and made it better? No, I'm going to put in a whole bunch of effort once, then give up and spend the rest of my life, I guess, in a concrete fart box, to quote True Crime Loser.
Joel Michael Guy Jr. was nice enough to not cut his dad's off, at least his pants. Saw the signs of stabs, cuts.
Please. Okay, next 5 to 10 if you get a breaking point.
Good news, we're about done.
Actually, probably a good time. Yes, sir.
All right, folks, so your lunch is here. It's 12:50.
If you want to eat lunch, your lunch is here after you saw all that blood.
Yeah, what's kind of funny is like they always have to, in these, especially in case footage or in the courtroom rather, it's always this massive shift from like, oh, okay, let's take a 15-minute break. You can amble out and get yourself a packet of Oreos and then fucking
Take a potty break.
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, so there's Joel Guy. This has obviously been a pitiful overview of the case because there's so much to go over and there's so much evidence and the intricacies of it are all there. And of course, we could tear apart society, analyzing all the different ways that everybody will act. But that's just it. We're left with every situation being utterly unique. And once we have confirmation, then we speculate based on the stuff we don't know. But with Joel, we know basically everything, right? With Chad, we know basically everything. With Grant, we know basically everything. And that's the thing. It's like what makes one person from a very similar situation break out into a Fortune 500 or a musician or whatever, and what makes another turn to a life of hard drugs and eventually behind bars? Who knows? Like as a classic, not a classic, but maybe a famous example of life will kick you in the balls even after it makes you a hero, because the man that broke out of Jeffrey Dahmer's place and essentially brought him down, was horribly fucked up by it. Like, sure, he was presented in a suit with a nice haircut at the trial, but afterwards he was homeless. He, got hopelessly addicted to drugs, and in recent years was convicted of murder.
Yeah.
The man who escaped Jeffrey Dahmer was party to a murder when he should have been celebrated. Like, this man, given his life beforehand, was through a horrible situation with a wildly infamous serial killer. And, sorry for him that he didn't pop when the internet was big, because he probably could have ridden that sort of fame and clout, but it was before that. And so, and even after that, there's no guarantee, because he could have, just like he did now, back to drugs, because trauma is just that. It traumatizes you and shifts your every perception if you let it. And so you we as a species want to go, well, if we fix this, and this, there'll be no more problems. And we're great at identifying the major correlative aspects, like the spoiling of the kids or the abuse of the kids, the maltreatment of this or whatever. We can definitely see the patterns in the things that arise. But then you see the ones that come out of nowhere, like Cody Legibakov. He was fucking, off the radar completely until he was accidentally found by someone, and then he gave a story about how he beat a deer to death with his fist because he was poaching in the Canadian wilderness.
What?
Off the radar completely. And that's the thing. I like to bring that up because it's something that maybe gets overlooked, or maybe people talk about it all the time. I don't know. It's just kind of me. But so we have the ones we catch, the ones that we can prosecute, and the ones that get to trial. So we have 100% of the ones we catch, 3% go to trial. But 100% of what we catch is an unknown percent of all crime committed that we don't catch. Yeah, that's what most of the serial killers do. That's what you if you're one of these people who is a psycho and you want to keep going because that's your game, you target vulnerable and or invisible members of society. But when you're an idiot, like Chandler, like Grant, all the people we've mentioned before, and Joel here, you strike out at the hand that feeds, not realizing that, like, who would? Like, sure, crazy things happen where, like the Vampire San Francisco, where that guy would run around and was literally randomly trying doors to get in and killing people. Absolutely random and crazy because he suffered from schizophrenia and all that. So there's a small percentage of that. But by and large, a murder is committed by the people closest to them.
Yeah.
And an insane amount of wrongful convictions come from stuff like that. They get someone close to them who didn't do it, but it makes the most sense because who in their right mind would go, yeah, a guy tried a door, it was unlocked, he saw that as a sign from God, so he came in and slaughtered a mom and her baby and drank their blood.
Right.
That sounds less credible than a jealous husband or a jilted lover or whatever, an angry cousin.
Yeah.
It's, we're never going to figure it out. We're just going to talk about it a lot and we'll focus on the interesting pieces. But yeah, that's all we got for you guys. I appreciate you coming by. Sarah and, Johnny Mnemonic. It's great having you guys. Kayla, thanks for showing by. Everybody who showed up that didn't engage in the chat. Tony, thanks for pointing out when people are gay. I appreciate that. It's always appreciated. Really quick, I'm going to plug the other show I do that I never plug, that I always forget, but Raiders of the Lost Genre here on YouTube. If you go over to Scott Vaughn's YouTube channel or look for Raiders of the Lost Genre, we review old movies about lost worlds and places and stuff. And it's fun. And that's all I got. So until next time, I appreciate you guys coming. Next week, maybe we'll keep it light, but I loved accommodating this request. So maybe we'll do another one if you got it. Until next time, we'll catch you later, guys. See you next week.
For this, try to.
Fistful of Podcasts Radio.